Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Tuesday, November 4th regular meeting. Call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented and request that all presentations and discussions be conducted respectfully and in a manner mindful of everyone's.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
yes.
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 Thank you, Claire. Okay, before we approve the minutes, I would like to have another moment of silence for a commissioner that we lost this week, Brock Wickham. And if everyone could please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda, we have consideration of the minutes of October 7, 14, and 24. Does anybody have any?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have at least one revision on October 7, page 3 in the action items, second paragraph. It was Kurt that went to the city manager evaluations. And I think that's. Oh, yeah.
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second,
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. Okay, next we will have public comment, and I want to remind everyone that the public comment is not part of the hearing that we will have later. If you want to make comments, then you'll have an opportunity to do that. When you want to make a public comment, raise your hand. Press, keep it under 3 minutes and be kind and respectful. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? In the audience. Okay, turn up. Yes.
This is Robert Lincoln Method, Field Block M21 and Georgia. I'd like to propose that we start a petition to call the village Health Food Village. It's really disconcerting at this point between Alley Gallery across the street from Chamber. Our amazing health herd hangs out here many days. And we watch people get chased. We watch people get threatened. We watch people threaten elk. It's just Disneyland was happening. And it's only going to be tomorrow that somebody's going to get hurt. That, not just dogs trample. So I don't know what to do. As you know, we should start figuring out birth control for the herd. Now, I don't know whose venue that lands is. You know, maybe the state, maybe us. But it's really every morning having to scoop elk food, having gardens destroyed, probably traffic accidents. I don't know the statistics. It's become a burden, and I think we have to deal with it.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, is there anyone on Zoom that would raise your hand?
Yeah, 2 hands up.
Okay.
Elena.
Okay, Elena, go ahead.
If you're talking, Elena, we can't hear you.
Never known you to be quiet. Come on.
We have Sharon Clyde.
Okay, Sharon, go ahead.
Hi, Sharon Clyde, P.O. Box 973, Cannon Beach. I have a comment about last week's meeting about the Cannon Beach Elementary project. You know, it was almost 3 hours, if not over 3 hours. And it was the same thing that we've been talking about for the last 5 years. And it was mostly talked about whether to keep the buildings or to get rid of the buildings, and and everybody's opinion on that. Gary's presentation, both presentations were great, but Gary's presentation had money with it, $6 million, which is less than half of what the original plan was. So, we've got to, in my opinion, decide, you have to decide on a budget first, and then decide what you're going to do with that budget. You can talk about whether to do the buildings or not do the buildings as far as tearing them down until the cows come home. But the main problem has always been the budget. As to why we didn't, that turned out to be the main problem, that half the people didn't want it that expensive. So, until you decide on the budget, nothing else can get decided. You need to, in my opinion, decide on, okay, you're going to spend $6 million or you're going to spend $6.5 million, and then find out what the majority wants. Okay,
Thank you.
that was it. Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're gonna try. Is she speaking? Okay. Okay, anybody else in the audience? Amber?
Hi, I'm Amber Fowler, PO Box 657. I just wanted to say, kind of following on to Sharon's comments, I listened to the meeting last week, and I thought it was great that there were a lot of people that came forward and talked about what they wanted. And I felt like it would have been really nice to have the council or to have the group validate or acknowledge, hey, we heard this many people wanted this and this many people wanted this. And we're hearing that in the community, this is the feedback. Because I feel like that's kind of what derailed us, that led us to the ballot in the first place, was a lack of feeling heard in the community. And so I feel like as voted in council members, your job is to represent the community and to get those voices and to make sure that what you're hearing is what the voices are in the community. And I just didn't feel like that happened at all last week. And so and whether that comes out as a response that's delayed or whether that comes out as sort of like a recap of, okay, this is so helpful. Thanks for having voices in the community. Thanks for putting forth a bunch of ideas. It'd be really nice to see that reflection of what those voices are and then say, okay, but we have some constraints, or we like this idea, but we don't like that. But it'd be nice to hear something as opposed to it feeling like it's city staff and council against the community. I think that that's what we're trying to solve for, is more unity. And it'd be nice to hear some validation, and that's really only my point. Some reflection on active listening. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? Okay, so we will close public comment and move to resolutions. And the first resolution is several resolutions. Karen?
I'll just recap the staff report, if that's okay. Last meeting, we brought numerous resolutions.
Excuse me for a minute. If you're gonna be in the audience having this side conversations, this is distract.
She's started.
Okay, that's your warning. Thank you. Go ahead.
We brought several resolutions to you, last meeting to consider, after the review of 5-year, direct award contract specializing in the specialized, scope of these contracts. And, ask for your approval on that tonight. The recommendation is legal counsel and staff recommends that council approve each resolution as drafted, authorizing exemptions and directly awarded a contract to each contractor at such not to exceed amounts as presented in each resolution.
If I may add as well, the only revisions that you'll see between what was previously presented to council and these updated drafts is simply some minor clerical revisions, grammatical revisions, etc. And I believe some additional feedback around some of the cost for the not to exceed amounts. So everything else should remain the same. And we'll also let you know that we are in the process of we haven't actually executed new contracts, but we are the contractors here are informed and are on board with this approach. They're all very excited if we are able to do this, to be able to do this.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Eric, anything?
No, I appreciate the adjustments that were made, dropping it from 10 to 5 for each of the contracts, and then I noticed the typo correction for the one.
Perfect. And again, appreciate you all doing such a close reading of those. Always appreciate the attention to detail.
I move to approve resolution numbers 2519, 2520, 2521, 2522, 2523, 2524, 2525, and 2526 for the purposes of adopting findings to support an exemption from the formal invitation to bid/request for proposal process.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Ostrander,
Yes.
Counselor Hammond,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Council President Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we have resolution 2527. And at our last meeting, we had a relatively new audience member, and she made a good suggestion that I make sure everyone knows who's speaking. And I already forgot that Karen Bonke, the Public Works Director, was on, and our legal counsel. So right now we have Tim Coleman, our Finance Director, and Anthony Murray, our Emergency Manager. He handles all emergency. Okay, go ahead.
So I don't have my staff form in front of me, but basically I was requesting an increase to the budget for the CAL system to upgrade it from its current power to AC power as its primary source.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Was the fact that this was only solar power brought up during the original bid process and the work that we approved?
So it was installed as an off-the-grid system initially, as it was for a couple different reasons. One, for the time sensitivity. So in order to get the system installed as fast as effectively and for that reduced price, we had to have a contractor that it wasn't a licensed electrician to install it, so it needed to be installed as an off-the-grid system or a solar powered only system. So the system itself it's not actually ran off of solar, it's ran off of battery power, just like the old system. So in each cabinet, there's batteries. And those batteries, once they get drained to a certain portion, they're trickle charged by solar. So right now, we currently have solar hooked up, and then we also have the ability to hook up a generator.
they would plug in there to trickle charge it as a generator. And so I want to add an additional thing to hook it up to AC power, just like the system previously was. And then, like, let's say the power goes out and then AC power isn't there, the backup would be solar and then the tertiary would be the generator.
So, and do you have a bid for this? Do you know that that's what this is gonna cost? Is this 25,000 or is this just a ballpark estimate?
No, I have a bid that's included in, yeah.
And we added a couple thousand in contingency.
Just.
And so we would, out of that portion, it's only technically, so that, two of them would come from the Cannon Beach Rural Fire District. So we wouldn't pay to upgrade those ones, we're just gonna pay for
The ones in Arch Cave.
correct, yeah, so we're just paying for 4 in Cannon Beach.
So that was done for the expediency of getting it up and running.
Correct, yes, and for the price point, so if a licensed electrician would have had to be, like, the actual installer, it would have tripled the budget. It would have tripled the price because you'd have to pay the electrician costs. So the contractor who installed it, ATI, that's what they told me, and so we kind of made that decision to install it the way we did, to upgrade it at a later time to AC power, which is kind of what I'm requesting right now.
Is this to upgrade all of them to it, or just the
Correct.
problem Nebezna one?
No, it's gonna upgrade all 6 of them to be able to be powered by AC power.
Okay.
I move to approve resolution 2527 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases to the fiscal year 25-26 budget by making an intra-fund transfer of appropriations for the CAS system in the executive department.
Second. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call please, Jen?
Counselor Henry.
Yes.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Council President Kirk.
Yes.
Counselor Ostrander.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, we have an action item, consideration of next steps with the Holland property. And Bruce, our city manager, give staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. In May 2025, the city of Cannon Beach commissioned an appraisal of the Haystack Hill property owned by the Holland Family Trust. An updated appraisal is required with the with their agreement with the Oregon Coastal Alliance, or ORCA, who will be facilitating the fundraising for the property. Two most recent appraisals were done in 2009 and 2017. They were done by the same appraiser. The one in 09 was paid for by the city, the one in 2017 was paid for by the Hollands. Both of those appraisals came in at $4.8 million. The most recent appraisal, formed by Matthew Larrabee, was commissioned by the city, came in at $2 million. Since this most recent appraisal came in a significantly reduced number from the previous appraisals, the Holland family is reticent to move forward with fundraising and sale plans that have been in development for the last 15 months. On its face, this does not directly appear to be a city issue, except that if a property value is acceptable to the Hollands comes in and enough funds are raised through the agreement with Orca, the stated intent of the Hollands is to deed the property to the city. At this point, it seems reasonable for the city to commission another certified appraisal to have a comparison for the other appraisals to see if the arrangement can be completed. There's two options. I have 3 listed. One of them is not generally feasible. Order another appraisal from a different certified appraiser and accept the result. Accept the current appraisal and see if the path can be found moving forward. That's it for the staff report in the Holland district. That Holland is.
Beth, did you wish to speak?
If there are questions, you know, you have our letter, so you understand
where we are coming from and we had two goals going into this. One was to fund the trust and one was to preserve the hill. And we did it because we love the hill. And we hope that all of you have been up there, you understand that it's this really amazing piece of property and that it will go into the future if we can do this. So there's our hearts and there's our goal.
I have a question. Well, so the first and second appraisal, do they have a development feasibility study?
The
Like
first
this-
and second, yes, of course, yes,
They had, that looked at the code and looked at the slope of the hill and everything?
yes. Yes, they're both MAI, same level of appraiser. It was, when we bought the property into the family trust at my mom's passing, we decided to go back to the old city appraiser because it had already been done. And we figured it would save time and money to just reuse the city's. So that's why we did it again in 17. And that's why we are here, because the current appraisal, the spread is great enough to warrant
Well, because, okay, I guess that isn't my question. My question was that there's attached to this appraisal, there's a development feasibility study done by David Evans and Associates.
correct.
And that seems to be what lowered the appraisal value of the property because they basically said because of the steep slopes on the property and because of our code and the way it's written, that you only have 4 buildable lots, therefore that lowered the appraisal number.
That was correct in 17 too, and it was in the previous appraisal that it was for 4 lots. The previous city planner had encouraged us to consider a cluster development on the front. The last thing that we want to see as far as protecting the property is a road from the back, which they did do an appraisal for that. I don't know if it was in the previous appraisal, but that cuts the whole back. It's basically destroying that corridor. But when we're on the market, we see the best and where it's going is houses that we see around town up on the hills here. Because we have 4 acres, we'll see a house that looks like a hotel with the road coming from the back because that's the kind of money that we will attract to that property. It won't be a local buyer. It won't be sold locally. But if we go back on the market, it will sell. And that's what we're trying to circumvent right now with your help.
So the third appraisal, will you have a development feasibility study done by a different person, or will you use David Evans again, or will you accept his?
We're hoping that we can speak with the city staff at this point, so which we're not able to do before. There was a sense or an assumption that the city needed to protect themselves with this appraisal. Why that was necessary, we have no idea. We think what we're doing is only to benefit this community. So anyway, that was part of there's no road in from the front. We have an appraisal from McEwen, an estimate of cost to bring in utilities and a road. We don't know if that was in the appraisal. It seems like they just not familiar with the area. David Evans is a very big engineering firm out there, thousands of workers. When, I don't know where they came up with 3 lots on the back. I mean, that sort of, there were so many things in the appraisal that we really saw as very problematic.
So then you would probably want a different feasibility study done by a different.
A new appraisal, yes, and by someone who's familiar with luxury appraisals. This appraiser is known, Mr. Larrabee, I'm sure very well vetted, but he does primarily farmland, timberland, large land. He didn't understand the brackets that he put around our property were in Manzanita, in Nestleton. I mean, where he looked for comparables, there was one here in town. So we just feel that we missed the boat with this appraiser. The next appraiser, we're hoping, will at least have some input so that we can hope that it's done quickly and that it's done at a reasonable cost and that it's a good appraisal.
And would you want a whole new appraisal, or do you want some to review?
You know, it's what they need a new appraisal, and that I think is what Bruce is recommending.
I think that if I may, I think that you run into problems when you have a current appraisal, that is so current, and you have someone else come in and appraise that property. Kind of a slippery slope to have someone come in because they call it fishing for value. And I'm not saying that the property's not valuable. But how much was the appraisal, Tim?
This one was 32 because of the engineering firm.
We also have engineering done for the first appraisal. So there's a lot of reasons why, they were looking at something very similar, but they took very different directions. And the timing, has been very critical to us and, somewhat disappointing. We couldn't understand, we lost a whole summer in our efforts. Very rough timing. The wait.
I mean, you were talking about as far as, fishing for value. But and we're talking about an agreement working here, and I know we approved that agreement. But what was the contractual relationship, specified regarding the appraisal? Would that be a maximum amount that Orca would be collecting? Does anybody recall?
I don't think there was an amount set in there at all. I think there was was it 4 million? I think it was.
The previous appraisal was 4.8. Orca doesn't care. I actually got that.
So essentially, it's there's an agreement between the city and Orca. And the agreement with the city and Orca is for whatever the appraised value is. And then there's a purchase sale agreement between us and the Hollands. So that's kind of how the agreements work. And in talking to Orca, one of the issues is that it would be going out to the donors would ask how much did the property appraised for. So that's one thing that Orca said.
Orca doesn't really care how much the appraisal's for.
They don't care what the number is, they just care that there's a backing
Right.
for when they're going out and trying to fundraise.
And I keep looking for it, I'm missing it in here where there was 3 options that were presented in Bruce's letter, but I'm not seeing where he said that he would recommend one of those 3 over the others, unless I'm missing a page.
No,
Before.
yeah, I believe that's what he just said. The third option actually wouldn't work, because what ends up happening is, an appraiser would come in and would look at another appraiser's work. And what they will do is they check for compliance, but if they're actually coming up with a value, then they're actually redoing the appraisal. So that's kind of the way the appraiser works.
And these previous appraisals are just too old to use as a basis for this?
Correct.
And what defines how old?
That part I do not know. But so 8 years, it's 8 years between the first one and the second one, between the second one now and the third one.
The real estate market changes so quickly.
Right, so.
that, those first 2 probably aren't even relevant anymore.
But usually it goes up.
Well,
In this case, we're down $2.8 million.
Which is,
But at the same point in time, from 09 to 17, it didn't move either. There was no price movement in those time periods.
and the same appraiser.
At the same price.
His reasoning was that the market had fluctuated so much, it had gone through so many ups and downs that we arrived basically at the same place in 17.
Would we ever see a copy of the, development feasibility study for the old appraisals?
I have the old appraisals, I don't know if they're I don't know about the development and feasibility study inside those. I know there was code, they've checked the code, et cetera. But yeah, so I can give copies of the old ones too. if you
Just,
have an order.
just that seems to be that one could think that that is why this appraisal came in lower because of that feasibility study. And so, you know, in other words, how developable are the parcels, et cetera, et cetera. We also know that anything can be developed, any piece of property in engineering, so this is really.
It's interesting too, that in the appraisal that Larrabee just completed, the landslide area south of us is all marked landslide. There's just clips into the property on our side, but our hill is not in the landslide area. It was one time Tom Horningfeld that connected to the rock. It has, and we have a lot of studies, geologic studies, engineering studies to support building size. When my father was alive, he was wanting to develop the property, so he had it extensively studied. So that, and that was all available to the original, you know, I think some of us remember those days. So quite an extensive study of the hill. It is very buildable. There was 12 lots engineered for the hill, for that property.
So if we go out and get another appraisal, are they going to want to see the most current appraisal that was done?
I do not know for a fact, but I would guess.
And then the question is, something tells me, I mean, that $2.8 gap is not to be bridged. Unless there's something just completely lacking.
Well, if the feasibility study, if the development feasibility study is done, another one is done, and that has a different, you know, take on property, that would make a huge difference in the appraisal does.
It would. And was it sold, do we know if it was sold to the appraiser? When the appraiser did it, did we tell them that we were looking for development there? Or-
The goal for the appraisal is, as it, so it's not as a park, right, which is what it would be, that does work, but what is the most valuable doing, so developing it in some way, shape, or form would be the most valuable. So that was the opinion that they went for. I also believe Robert Gillis, who did the original one, had the same opinion. So what is the highest value of the property? And then that is kind of what the value you transfer it at.
The differences in the approach that they took were vast. The roads, the amount of money it would cost to bring in utilities and a driveway were vast. And the estimates we had for the road and utilities came from Mike McEwen after looking over the property and looking at the original drawings. So that's his, you know, that's where we were. That's what we are. You know, we think Mike McEwen could easily bring in a driveway for the front lot and maybe two. There's a lot off Viewpoint Terrace that this appraisal doesn't look at. We don't even see that on this current appraisal. Why, we don't know. But there is obviously a lot right there on Viewpoint Terrace.
So
Just a different
McEwen involved at all in this third appraisal?
What's that?
Like McEwen Construction, were they involved at all in the appraisal?
Not to my knowledge.
Usually they don't bring in anyone to develop their own knowledge, right? And it is difficult when there aren't comparables that, you know, that does,
It's very hard.
yeah, it's a difficult position, right? So what happens if we order another appraisal and it still comes back lower than this 4.8 million?
If it came in as low as, we're not obligated to take it.
Oh, I
You
understand.
know, so that's what that's all I can tell you. There were a 7-member trust. most of us are watching right now, we're all here together, but we're not in the room. So we have to take our counsel on that, we all will have to look at it at that point. And there's no guarantee that we would accept it.
Right,
We do have a sales agreement working out that Tim and this our attorney, city attorney, we're very close on the sales agreement. I think in our sales agreement, we stipulate that we won't take less than 4.8. We may come down if it becomes necessary, but we're not required to do it in the sales agreement the way it's working right now.
and this is all done through donations, so sometimes, because this is all gonna be a donation to work.
Well, yeah, actually, technically, it's a donation to the city through Orca. Is the way it works.
The property is, the money goes to Orca.
The money is collected by Orca, but essentially it's a donation to the city
For the
all the
The
bottom
money
property.
goes to home trust, the actual cash that's brought in.
What's that?
The money that's brought in by Orca goes to the home trust. Correct.
It will eventually, but again, in the way the agreement is, Orca is to make it tax deductible. Orca's agreement has to be with us.
They're an umbrella organization.
Yeah, so it has to, so we have the agreement with Orca, so Orca will go out with the Holmans to do the fundraising. Orca will get the money and then essentially through an escrow would pay the Hollands off and the property would come to us. But our agreement is with this, they're actually working technically for the city.
So if the appraisal came in higher, let's say it came in at 3.5. It's, hopefully it would come in even more than that, but Orca and the Hollands, if they found the right philanthropist to donate money that felt they were comfortable with putting their money there above the appraised value, that's a possibility.
Yes.
It is a possibility. The only problem that it brings for them, for the donor, is they can only write off up to what the appraised value would be. So if there's $500,000 left owing,
Right.
and they wanna donate $1 million, they can only write off $500,000. So that's gonna be a hard sell.
Not necessarily, because so many people now are feeling that people in that bracket aren't really needing tax write-offs anymore. And that's what we hear quite often, you know, that's not, and also once a person decided to just donate directly to the city, you know, there are routes for it to take, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, the funds have to go through Orca because it has to go through the
Has to go through a fund. So they're technically, you could remove Orca from it, we could just be the donation on it, but nobody wants that, so. Yes.
And Orca's not,
So they're the umbrella.
Orca's not raising money, they are not fundraising.
Orca is fundraising.
I was told
Orca is
By
doing the fundraising.
that, I was told that the fundraising was being done by the homes.
Not
And
by the
that-
Collins, we cannot do that.
Well, the Hollands in conjunction with Orca are the fundraising arm for this endeavor.
And it's not, but I can recall that.
Cameron is on. Okay.
We believe that there is a real will in this town and that among people here, that's gonna be our fundraising on. Once we can get people up there to see it, I mean, Mr. Larrabee thinks we have a very limited view. We're looking directly at the top of Haystack Rock. We have it all in scope, the whole rock. We have a whole park. You know, maybe you have to go this height and that height, but it's all there. And future generations, the trees on that property are probably 70 years old, 80 years old. In another 50 years, 60, 80, it's time. It's a value in time. It's an invaluable piece of property. So the whole thing is hinged on will and the ability for people in this community to come forward and in the state You have to remember, we were with the state for a long time before we came to you with this proposal. And we felt that with the state, you know, we had an opportunity with John Young's name, the connection to 9 acre John Young property is substantial in Oregon. He's responsible for the Columbia Gorge. He's responsible for the road over Neoconi Mountain. He's a huge name here. And he is the one that's how the 9 acre state park came to be from the beginning. And through our donors' request, we worked to join the property to that state land because we saw that was the road ahead for it, to have it joined to the 9 acres. And now we still see that, but the other route was to keep it in a public domain, which was what John Young wanted with the 9 acres. So by bringing it into the city or the state and keeping it in the public domain, we were assured, and our donors are assured, that it will be protected in perpetuity. And that's why we took this route. We ended up with the city because the state is a walk-in park. Their mandate is to entertain people, to have access, and this property doesn't have it. And that's why they came to the city and asked if you would take it and keep it in the public domain.
As a
So we just,
passive park.
as a walk-in.
And where are we at with,
It's really not a park, and park is really has to come away from it, even, you know, reversionary clause, if the city for any reason decides to develop it or not, to just keep it as a reserve, really as a natural area. They don't want park in there because it's not gonna have swings, and it's just to protect it for wildlife and for viewing on the trail. It's a trail that's already exists. So there's, you know, a minimal maintenance. In 50 years that it's been in the family, you know, we've done just about nothing. The state agreed with that. They've done just about nothing. It's maintained by neighbors walking through there. So the hope is that it will catch a hold of people's imaginations and their hearts in this community and within the state. And they'll see the reason why this should go forward. If not, it'll be a McMansion with a road from the back.
and where are we at with the state parks portion? How does it relate to the Holland Orca?
I think we haven't done anything with the state yet with regards to that piece of property. Once we have the agreements with the Hollands and Orca, then I would reach out to the state about the next step.
But they've already expressed interest.
They've already, yes, they don't want to take care. They don't want that, they're like, yeah,
So essentially
They want to be
contributors.
connected and preserved. They're very strongly wanted, connected and preserved, have letters of support from them.
Contributors to this effort will actually be supporting a much larger park than just the Holland portion. But I'm curious about option 2 here, which is accept the current appraisal and see if a path forward can be found. Does anybody have any ideas what that path forward is?
Well, I kind of touched on that. That path forward at this point right now is accept the appraised value and see if you can find donors that will donate beyond that up to that whatever the agreed upon price is.
So we'll just be asking
Of
Orca
50.
to take, let's say we settled at 3.5.
We believe that Orca will accept 4.8.
we would have to change the agreement currently with Orca to state something similar to what the PSA would state.
But some kind of percentage over, 2 times over the appraisal.
Yeah, 50-something%.
And I guess, you know, my question for Orchid is, how much of a problem is that?
And Cameron is available. Cameron, would you like to weigh in on this?
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Good
great.
evening.
Good evening. I wasn't sure that whether my raised hand showed on the on your end. So I've been listening to this whole thing, and I think that from the, Tim said it accurately, what our role is as essentially doing the fundraising instead of the city, and working with people in the community, not the Hollands directly, because that would be, since it's their property and they're going to ultimately get the money, that would not really be appropriate. But there's other community members who we have already spoken to who are interested in leading, partnering with us to lead the fundraising in the community and to large donors. Generally speaking, donors, I mean, individuals vary, but generally speaking, donors for a property like this want to be donating as part of an appraisal, a recent appraisal, not one that's 8 years old. So it would be really difficult to raise money if we were using the 2017 appraisal. Any donor who was maybe not someone who's writing a check for 100 or 200, but certainly somebody who's writing a check for several $100,000 would not want to go with an old appraisal. I think that the possibility of just using a different number than the current appraisal, that's possible, but again, donors in the higher brackets, I think, would prefer to be donating according to what the current appraisal says. I think I am not an appraiser, so, first of all, I don't have technical competence in this, but I think the most transparent way forward would be for there to be a new appraisal and possibly a new feasibility report that uses different assumptions than the current one. We found it somewhat questionable that the current appraiser does not have an expertise in luxury properties, which is a different subcategory of property than, farmland or forest land or commercial real estate. And that perhaps in another appraisal, whoever is going to pay for it, whether it's the city or the Hollands or jointly, might want to focus on having an appraiser with expertise in luxury properties. Does that help? Was there a specific question that people wanted to have answered?
It helps a lot. What defines a luxury appraiser? Anybody know? Dollar terms or anything?
Somebody who wants to own a McMansion and never be there. Somebody who owns property all across Oceanfront right now. I mean, our families.
Somebody who understands that market, there are people out there.
But is it a dollar amount or?
What's the definition of luxury?
Luxury appraisal.
Just someone who deals in homes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
And say again how much the appraisal is.
So that's what we're saying, 2,000 with the engineering for,
Where's the engineering study?
with the engineer, bringing the engineer.
Hey, Tim, can you repeat that number again? I didn't quite catch it.
Eric, I'm sorry, Eric, 32,000 with.
32,000,
with the-
okay.
Yeah, bringing in the engineer.
So we'll be in this for $64,000 before we can even.
know if it's gonna come back to that 4.8 million.
We have talked with the appraisal board in the state level, and there are appraisers who can come in, with a much more reasonable amount and in a shorter time frame, because it's very important to us that we have this done quickly. We've gone very far now, but we're getting close to the time that we can put in our sales agreement. We are not going to go past May 1st without knowing that we have a reasonable shot to make this happen. So the time is getting very slim for us. So those are the two criteria that we need to meet and we also have talked with appraisers that are much less. So if we can approach appraisers that could do this quickly, who knows what the price will be, but hopefully not that. Again, there's a lot of information, plenty of engineering's been done now. We have all of our engineering, we have their engineering, so with this new appraiser, be able to look at all of that.
Since the city paid for this appraisal that's already been done, is there an option for the Hollands to pay for a redo, essentially, since that's seems to be what is being asked?
Dollar appraisal is usually frowned upon.
Yeah, it would seem to me that we would want to be an arm's length transaction.
Yep.
Okay.
So if we were to have another appraisal, could we say a maximum amount, not to exceed?
Sure, I am not 100% up on the market for appraisals, so, I would have to do some shopping,
Okay.
and then go from there.
Well, who picked this appraiser?
Well, we picked this appraiser, it was somebody that we have used for, easements, et cetera, around here, that we've used before.
But it would be better if we had a luxury builder appraiser, but then, because that is what's relevant to that property. Would there really have to be another feasibility study done though? Because what they did is they looked at the code, they looked at the slope of it, they came up with a percentage of, average of the slope. I think it was 49%. So does that really have to be done again?
I would assume that a new appraiser would have to go through that.
It's kind of an engineering thing, it's like a numbers thing, so it's either, it's like it's either right or wrong.
The appraiser, the work that we had done prior to the Evans was WH Pacific. And the engineers that I spoke with when we visited the property, were very aware of WH Pacific's work and had taken in a lot of the engineers into their firm. And they felt that it was a good solid firm that my parents had used to develop lots on the property. So we have all that information. We have all the past engineering work that was done. So we're not coming in with nothing. Whether David Evans decided to start all over again and not to use any of it, that was their choice. But a new appraiser hopefully will take advantage of all the engineering that's been done. It doesn't change really.
Yeah, yours and Evans, all of them.
It's all good.
I do not know. I mean, as a licensed professional, as a CPA, I would not rely typically on somebody else's work. In my license, but I don't know about the appraisal business.
I think it's pretty the same. I think it's a technical issue regarding their license, not to use someone else's work. Could they review it? Possibly, but not actually.
And most of it would be reviewed for compliance, is what we'll do.
They have to review, so otherwise they couldn't.
I would guess an appraiser would want to review both the most recent appraisal and the earlier two, because it's certainly interesting that the earlier two came in close to one another and the third one came in drastically lower. From an appraiser's point of view, that's kind of a curious pattern. Before then doing their own work. And we would just, in the fundraising seat here, we would just like to have an appraisal that is as close to accurate about what the true value of the property as luxury property is, so that we can go to donors and say, the most recent appraisal says the following, and it's based on the following assumptions, and you can rely on this as being the true cost of the property as far as professionals in the field can describe and sort it out.
Where's the money for the appraisals coming from the city?
General fund.
Well, how I look at it is how invaluable it will be if this land becomes the property of the city as a passive, I call it a passive park, but, and that it seems to me that it's worth it for that amount of money for the city to invest in a third appraisal. If that's the only way forward is to do one. And, you take this land, I don't know if any of you have walked it, I think Gary has.
I got
as far. Yeah, but
died getting up the hill, but.
and probably Erica, but having been up there and seen it and then thinking of it being contiguous with what is there, already, that used to be State Park. It would just be amazing to have this huge green belt in the middle of Cannon Beach. So that to me, even though I'm not happy about it, I still think that I would like to see us pay for another appraisal.
Yep, let's just find a luxury appraiser.
Yeah, I don't think we can put a price tag on what value having that trail, as a trail would be.
Yeah.
And I agree, I agree. We just need to, all of us maybe in our minds thinking, if it doesn't come back at this 4.8, where are we going from there?
I think we'll cross that bridge when we
Well, I know, but we can all start individually thinking about that, keeping our fingers crossed. that it comes
That's-
back.
That's the concern that I have. I'm 32,000 for in terms of the city getting this as a reserve as a steal. Even at 64,000, the city getting this as a steal. But I'm concerned that it doesn't come in. It comes in at 2.5 or just 3 million, and the Holland Trust as the coalition decides they can't accept that and doesn't want to move forward with anything, and then we're in 64 grand for nothing.
Yeah, it's a gamble. That's true.
I just think if we've had two appraisals at 4.8, that this most recent one is the outlier. And I guess I'm ready to gamble that.
I am too.
So are you guys willing to gamble with us?
Well, even if we weren't, we're outnumbered, but yeah.
That's good. Eric, are you okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to voice that concern because that's a lot of money. We've already spent a lot of money, and it would be a lot of money, and I'd hate for it to just kind of all be in vain, and it just the whole thing walk away because it doesn't come in at an appraised value that they accept.
Okay, you have that direction?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the labor law agreement. And Bruce?
Thank you. The city attorney asked us to go over leaving Drury out there and the BEH on the wage. At the end of the year, we need to find a labor council, because that was one of the specialties she had when she came to us. And she introduced us to the CDR labor law group. And, we have here, we've interviewed them, and there's a contract included in the agenda materials. And we recommend moving forward with, CDR group. And then there's, normally the city manager is capable or able to go up to $100,000 in a contract like this. But over several years, if possible, we would exceed that 100,000, so in an abundance of caution, we are bringing it to the council for approval.
Okay, anybody have questions? Is the D in CDR for Bristol?
No.
But C is for a Collier. I'm not related to it. I'm not related to it.
Yeah,
So what's
the
who's the R that he was?
R is Rowan.
Okay,
And Rowan.
Yeah.
really? So he's something, I was gonna say I've read that name.
But I feel good about this.
That's. She wanted to move us to good input.
It's Collier, not Word and Roman.
Courtney, budget, Kevin. Okay. Any other questions? Eric, do you have any questions?
No questions.
I'll move to approve the agreement with CDR labor law dated September 23, 2025.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Council President Kirk,
Yes.
Counselor Ostrander,
Yes.
Counselor Hammond,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, next we got the MOU SDIU certification program. Bruce?
Yes, the simplest form, this is an agreement between the city and the local SEIU 503. And it's a work certification program. City, as with most other organizations, will, pay for certain services, maybe a commercial driver's license, or it'll be somebody that has an electrician license. This one adds, welding to the service that the city would pay for. The welding, 5 miles of pipeline that we have, both in water and wastewater, equipment that we have, we need a welder. And so, that's what we're trying to accomplish with this agreement. The first to move forward with, we need to have a MOU with the local.
Any questions?
Is there any staff that are currently welding certified?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
2.
Oh, wow, good. Any other questions? Anyone like to make a motion?
I move to approve and adopt the revised MOU.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Council President Kirk,
Yes.
Counselor Ostrander,
Yes.
Counselor Hammond,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to discussion items of the County Farmers Market Annual Report. Stacy, you ready?
Is it on the server? Is it on the server? I can,
It's okay, I can look. Sorry, I was gonna print off the PowerPoint that I did, but I did not, and I didn't realize that I could put it in the meeting, but I don't get to see it, so. Being doing this, I suppose.
You can just move your chair so it's facing the screen. Is that your issue?
Yeah, I'll
Probably
just,
won't be able to see it either.
yeah, I was gonna
We
say,
probably won't be able to see it either.
okay. Maybe I should just send it to you.
I love that.
It wasn't that correct,
No,
that I don't have
you don't have it? I sent it to you via email.
it, I never got it.
Oh.
Chrissy, why don't you just go ahead, I mean, you know the subject better than anybody. So why don't you just go ahead and present?
I can just present, sure, yeah.
And then send us.
Then I'll send you the PowerPoint presentation.
We'll just imagine it.
You'll be so respectful of our time.
Exactly.
So this year, we went ahead and had the farmer's market in the same location. That was, actually one of our goals was to find a location, and it ended up, actually working out, I think, fairly well. We didn't really lose space like I thought we would, because we didn't have, the musicians. I was able to put another booth there. I think that I did the numbers, which you'll see. They came in a little lower, and I think that issue is because of parking, but we were able to secure parking at the Legion, so if you're a Legion member, you were able to park there and come over. And also the History Center, you could park at the History Center and come over to the market. So we tried to do the best we could with that issue, of the parking, but it definitely was an issue. The other issue obviously was the construction, but I will say that we did not have a lot of noise. If things just timing of it, we didn't have, the loud construction noises, so that was really good. I just want to give a big shout out to our volunteers. They, were there in the morning setting up. And, the police department would put out the barriers for us. Andy, you want to give a shout out to him because he would set up the Starlink, every Tuesday so that the vendors could have Wi-Fi, because that was another issue that we had with the, Wi-Fi being removed. And so we were able to use Starlink. But overall, I think the market was a big success. I still believe, that having a farmer's market is really important to the community. And we do offer, the SNAP benefits and the EBT. And so I think that was helpful. We had people that were able to take, advantage of that, program. And the double up food bucks, so I don't know if you're familiar with that, but, if you get EBT, we'll actually match that, two for one. So if you get $20, up to $20, if you get $20 in EBT, you actually get $40 in double up food bucks. That can be used for, fruits and vegetables, and some plants. I think that's kind of it. And I just wanted to give you a quick overall, rundown. My PowerPoint's much better, but some
Are
of
the
my
vendors comparable to previous years?
Yes, and one thing that we were able to do this year is if a vendor wasn't able to come, I was able to fill in. So we really didn't have roles. So, you know, one day we have sunflower seeds, and then a coffee roaster. Our egg vendor left early. She wasn't able to keep up with demand, but then we found another egg vendor who was able to be there. So I think the variety was really good this year. We did give special consideration, I would say, to vendors that had already been at the market. So it was kind of first come, first served, but if you were a vendor at the market before, we made sure that we got you into the space that were available. And I would definitely say that was another challenge, is that we had a lot more people that wanted space than we were able to give them. So,
How many vendors? How many vendors?
well, we had double booths, so 34, and I think we had 1, 2, 3 double booths, so 30 or 28 vendors. Yeah.
I would say you did a great job with the space that you had. There was a question when we started talking, is it even possible to do farmer's market with, you know, with this construction going on and everything else? And, did you know any of using the Conex boxes and?
We were able to put vendors in front of the Conex boxes. It made setup really easy. Our setup was like 15 minutes. That was really great. And we didn't really lose any space. What we did lose though was live music, which is a disappointment, and the nonprofit booths. And again, that was a disappointment, but we were just trying to make it work.
You did a great job.
So I would like to echo that, every week, I felt like there was a new challenge that wasn't quite envisioned, and Tracy handled everything, very gracefully, never lost her temper, very patient with everyone, and, so I appreciated your efforts, because I think it's really important that we've got another egg prisoner, so.
Well, looking forward, I've talked to you a little bit about the possibility of moving to the Gradesboro site and making sure that we have the kind of space that you would need there to not only maintain what you've got now, but have music and have the nonprofit booths. So, do you think that would work? You see benefits in that kind of move and getting it out of the Midtown?
I do. I will say, and I think of businesses in Midtown, some yes, some no. I will say that I have had some reservations from some of my vendors for some reason. So they're concerned with that location.
Their concerns are what?
Still the parking challenges, and they like that where, because it has history where it's at, that people know that's where it is. and with the hotels being there and the access to the beach, they're afraid this is a little off the beaten path. Even though I've explained people coming in from this way, it's kind of the first thing they see, so, you know, but these vendors have been with us and doing the market for forever and ever, so that's what they know.
And change is hard.
What percentage, I don't know if it's an estimate of locals versus visitors to the market?
It's probably 80-20. So, I mean, I think
80
it,
locals, I'm assuming.
no.
No? Really?
No. It's really is a tourist market. When we had more parking, I would say that more locals came out.
Yeah, and that's, I probably didn't.
Maybe
think it
I
was
should
this
be,
year.
maybe 70-30. Also the timing of it is difficult for people who live here and work. We know that. We also changed the hours, this year, 11 to 3, which the vendors, actually really seemed to like. Once we finally got Google to get it changed on their website, which took a lot of effort, because it kept coming up as 12 to 4. And so once we got that changed, I think the 11 to 3 seemed to the vendors work well. But yeah, I mean, maybe 70-30, Gary, is better, but it definitely is, a lot of, but we have people that vacation here year after year and they're returning. Because they know it from this one.
You know, for me to go, if I can't spend the time walking, both directions, then, I mean, especially this year with the construction, the parking was made it very challenging to get down there.
Yeah, I actually, we, Jen helped me with a map and we put together, maps for parking so that we could hand them out when people pulled up and they're like, where can I park? Tried to really discourage parking on any public property as much as I could.
Recommend Seabreeze parking lot.
I did not.
It sure felt like it was recommended.
Get a little ride out there.
We were busier. The parking pressure was untenable over Tuesdays for Midtown in our area. It was 4 hours every single Tuesday where we could not monitor parking. We had to buy cones specifically to do it. People coming for the market would move the cones. We literally had to stand outside and watch our parking every single Tuesday during the entirety of the market.
Good one, Gary.
I think Eric would like to see it, but.
Yes, definitely, and I mean, again, we put out, I will say also, I saw a lot of local people parking on private property, because they just sort of maybe felt they could, and I really tried to discourage that if I saw it happening. I saw the hardware store more than I would see Seabreeze, so that one I tried to do a little bit more over there. Yeah, parking was an issue, but parking is always an issue. It's always an issue in the summer. I see people park where I live and other places, not just on a Tuesday, but come Friday, Saturday. I mean, people are parking wherever they can find it. So I definitely think it's bad on Tuesday, but one of the things that I was really surprised at was I would literally drive to or walk over to the History Center and it was always empty. And I couldn't understand why locals who I told to park at the History Center just didn't take advantage of that. But I think, just getting the word out, and then the same with the Legion, any Legion members were able to park there. I could also see the, Public Coast parking situation, and I mean, I guess I haven't talked to Scott, but I think I didn't see a lot of people.
Do you mean Pelican?
No, public, it's not called Public Coast, Martin Martin North.
Oh, okay.
Cause I could see that from the information booth, I was surprised at how many people didn't try to park there. It was kept pretty, and if, again, like I said, if I saw it, I would try to discourage.
I was amazed by the local people that just double park and I put them up, I go, what are you doing? They go, we're just gonna be here for a couple minutes. I said that, they're right in the driveway, yeah.
And I did talk to the chief of police, to have the bike pops come around. The bike pops were actually ticketing my vendors. Then, they were kind of, there are other people kind of circling around, but, the bike pops can't issue tickets on private property. So I could only do the best I could, because if it's private property, it's up to the owners. So, which again, I do feel for the businesses around there, with people parking there, so.
Anything else? Okay, we'll look forward to your PowerPoint and.
Yeah, I'll give that sent to you. Sorry, I thought I sent that to you.
Okay, you did fine. Thank you. Okay. Minute break. Minute break. Okay, we're going back to all of our audience rules.
Yeah.
We're ready to start again. Thank you. Okay, this is a hearing regarding the appeal by Miller Nash LLP of Planning Commission denial of CU 2506 Miller Nash LLP on behalf of Maxine Siegel. Application for conditional use permit for the placement of a new shoreline stabilization structure. The property is located at 3915 Ocean Avenue, tax lot 400, map 41006 BC, in a residential moderate density R1 zone. The application will be reviewed against the criteria of CEMC 17.100, oceanfront management overlay zone, and 17.86 conditional uses. And Melissa Ryan, Missy Ryan, is going to give a little talk. So she is our land use attorney. Go ahead, Missy.
Good evening. Thank you. I wanted to just briefly address at the beginning of this hearing, a number of items have been submitted into the record. And as you recall, in a previous meeting, the council voted to hold this appeal on the record. So I guess I just wanted to recommend that the council could address these new submissions into the record in a couple of ways. The probably safest course of action would be to reject all of these new items, because the on the record review is limited to having no new evidence. The council could also accept these items, but not rely on them in reaching any decision. My concern is that some of the submissions are both very lengthy and maybe from people who did not participate in the first hearing. And so it would create a procedural problem for the council. And of course, the third option, which is not one I would recommend, would be to accept all of these new submissions into the record and potentially rely on them, which could lead to an allegation of a procedural error.
And are you referring to the public comments submitted in the last few days?
Yes, so there were, I broke them into 4 batches of comments just by the date that they were uploaded to the city's website. Some were uploaded on the 3rd, some were uploaded, I think there were 2 batches on the 3rd and 2 batches on the 4th. My primary concern is that there are lengthy submissions by Craig Law, on behalf of Surfrider and Oregon Coast Alliance, Cameron La Follette, and Friends of the Dunes. And I am concerned that some of those lengthy submissions might include new evidence, which isn't allowed under Cannabis Municipal Code 1718.050. Argument is allowed, but evidence is not allowed. And so that puts the council in the position of not really knowing what is new evidence and what is evidence that's just repeated from the Planning Commission submissions.
Well, since this is on the record, isn't it our job as counselors to familiarize ourselves with the record so we could ascertain whether or not it was new evidence or evidence that already existed?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So-
it's true. It's just that it came in very, very late and very close to the hearing. And so some of the submissions were 30 plus pages. And so it's possible that might get missed. But again, I think that the council can, either reject all of the submissions or it can accept them, but not rely on them in making your final decision. And then there will be no procedural problem.
It's kind of a middle of the road type way of going about it.
The second option is the middle of the road.
Well, I'm assuming we all read that.
So I'm going to say I did not read them because I had a feeling that's what the attorney was going to say. So I didn't read them because I didn't want to convolute anything that we had prior to that in my mind. It's a lot.
And I read them, I didn't read them and take a lot of notes on them because there was so much.
Yeah, I more concentrated on the actual, planning commission meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you read them, that is okay. You can still reject them and then they won't become part of the record. So you just can't rely on them in deliberating and reaching a decision. So having read them is not a fatal problem.
Eric, did you have anything to say?
I read through them. I was pretty familiar with the record, so I didn't read through a lot of the details, and especially the lengthy ones. I assumed some of those ones were going to be a lot of repeated information. There was just doubling down on arguments that were already made, so I didn't catch if there was new evidence submitted or not, but I read through all the submissions.
Good. So I would offer the middle of the road option. In other words, we don't get rid of them, but we don't rely on them making a decision.
I would agree with that, yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I did.
Okay, good. Eric?
That's fine with me.
Okay. Anything else, Missy?
No, thank you. I mean, I'll be here on the screen.
Don't leave. Okay, so I'm gonna open the public hearing. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the city council to hear this appeal at this time? Does any councilor believe he or she has a personal violence to declare? Does any councilor believe he or she has a conflict of interest? Has any councilor had any ex parte contacts or made a site visit?
Site visit.
Oh, okay, and just to add on my site visit, I decided to go back down today again and look after we had kind of a stormy weekend also.
Sounds like new evidence.
Extra credit, huh?
Sounds like new evidence.
Extra, I'm not relying on it. Okay, is there any additional correspondence?
Yes, there were 12 items that were received, submitted to council and posted online.
What was the last
The very
batch?
last one that was Orca and Betty Kieran.
Yeah, okay,
Those were, I think, later in the day.
thank you.
Okay, Over the past week, the planning department has received additional written testimony.
That is my heart.
That's you, okay, sorry. Do you need to read
I
that?
didn't have to hand you a read, but I did, so that makes what I did.
Okay, so I'd like to request a staff.
Good evening, Robert St. Clair, City Planner. The City of Cannon Beach Planning Commission rendered a decision to deny application CU number 2506, a conditional use permit for the replacement of a new shoreline stabilization structure for the purpose of erosion control 3915 Ocean Avenue. This application was reviewed by the commission in public hearings on August 28th and September 25th. The commission deliberated and issued its decision during the September 25th hearing, and the findings of fact and application, findings of fact for that application are included as attachment B to this report. William Rasmussen of Miller Nash LLP, on behalf of the Martin and Maxine C. Trust, requested a review of the decision in an appeal application that was received by the city on October 15th, 2025. This was within the 14-day annual window from October 2nd, the date the orders for these conditional use application were signed. The city council hopes to review meeting on October 24th and determine that the appeal will be heard on the record under the provisions of the Cannon Beach Municipal Code. Prior to this application, conditional use permit number CU 2404 for shoreline stabilization at the same address was reviewed and denied by the planning commission. This denial was appealed to city council and upheld in a public meeting on March 5th of this year. Moving into the basis of the appeal. The appellant asserts that the planning commission's decision was based on incorrect interpretation of the municipal code and factual determinations not supported by evidence in the record. Specific issues identified by the appellant are: number one, the planning commission failed to apply the correct burden of proof standard. The commission found that the application did not demonstrate the demand necessitating the placement of a shoreline stabilization structure. Additionally, the commission found that the application did not demonstrate that other higher priority methods of shoreline stabilization will not work, as required by Municipal Code 1786-230D2. The appellant asserts that the commission imposed an improperly high burden of proof standard on the applicant, rather than reviewing based on the preponderance of evidence standard of proof and references to Municipal Code 1716-07C, which defines the city's burden of proof standard, and states that proposals must include supporting evidence and the proposal conforms to Title 17 zoning, especially the specific criteria for each type of decision under consideration. Basis number two. The order does not adequately identify evidence or facts to rely on or provide sufficient reasoning to meet state law and local code standards. The appellant asserts that the planning commission's findings do not identify the relevant approval standards, set out the facts which are believed and relied upon, or explain how these facts lead to the decision on compliance with the approval standards. The appellant states that the findings contain multiple statements used as a basis for the decision which do not have supporting facts. And basis number three, planning commission disregarded expert analysis from the applicant's geotechnical and geological engineers based on assertions by unqualified non-experts. The appellant asserts that the planning commission disregarded the qualified expert analysis included with the application without countervailing expert testimony or a compelling reason to disregard that evidence. Experts providing supporting evidence for the application include a certified engineering geologist, the geotechnical engineer, a coastal engineer, and an ecological assessment expert. Moving into the applicable criteria. Cannon Beach Municipal Code requires shoreline stabilization structures to proceed a conditional use permit prior to construction. Under the city's code, a conditional use must meet the overall standards found in the CDMC 17E6080, as well as any conditional use standards for the use under consideration to the extent that the code contains standards addressing that use. In this case, the code has specific standards for shoreline stabilization structures that are detailed in Municipal Code 17E6210. The planning commission found that the application did not meet one of the 6 overall use standards in 17E6080. that a demonstrated demand for proposed use exists at that location. Additionally, the commission found that the application did not meet the following specific use standards, namely shoreline stabilization priorities and qualifications for beachfront protection. Moving into the specific overall criteria, the first one, 17.06 the overall standards and establishing demand. The planning commission's findings were that the proposed shoreline stabilization is a vegetated riprap structure which consists of riprap blocks bound by vegetation such as willows. These structures may also include sand blanket that may be planted with willows and beach grass, with sand providing a substrate for vegetation. The planning commission found that the proposed stabilization cannot be evaluated in isolation from the proposed method to achieve stabilization, in this case, the vegetative riprap. More importantly, planning commission notes the geotechnical report was submitted with the application states the bluff has eroded 5 feet in the last 10 years. The geotechnical report also estimates the erosion rate will more than triple in the next 10 years. That equates to a rate of erosion of 15 feet over a 10-year period for approximately 1.5 feet per year. The structure is set back at least 30 feet from the edge of the bluff, so there does not appear to be a current demand for the shoreline stabilization use of riprap, as the rate of erosion on this site indicates that it would take approximately 20 years for the bluff to erode such that erosion would reach the structure. Planning commission acknowledges this location does have a lower elevation, is located in a coastal high hazard area for flooding, and is in a high wave energy area, and the structure on the property may be at risk when waves overtop the bluff. But notes that any wave overtopping and location in a flood hazard zone will not be addressed by the proposed vegetated riprap, so concerns over high waves does not factor in the analysis. Based on this, the planning commission concluded the applicant had failed to demonstrate there is a demand for proposed shoreline stabilization. The applicant's response, the appellant's response. The appellant cites the municipal code standards for demand for a particular use, which is excerpted in the staff report, and argues that the planning commission's findings regarding the failure to demonstrate need are incorrect, as expert testimony regarding the rate of erosion was discounted, and the demand for the use was demonstrated through professionally prepared reports to document erosion and establish potential for structural damage to occur to the residents as a result of wave action and flooding. The staff comment is that the question before council is whether the applicant has demonstrated demand for the proposed use as required by Municipal Code 1786-0808. This determination of whether or not the applicant has demonstrated need for demand must be based on evidence and testimony in the record, and the applicant must establish by a preponderance of that evidence that there is demand for the proposed use. Morgan v. Jackson County, 78, ORUA 188-2018. Second the report. A preponderance of the evidence means evidence which is of greater weight or more convincing than the evidence which is offered in opposition as defined by the Lexicon Dictionary. Moving into the next criteria, 1786-230D, shoreline stabilization priorities. The Planning Commission's findings were, regarding subsection 1, the Planning Commission found that the evidence in the record is that the site had a stable vegetated block for at least 15 years before 2021. With the approval of CU number 2105, the stable vegetated block was altered and the area was landscaped to include replanting with willow and replacement with columns. The Planning Commission found that the applicant has not shown that the willow plantings were appropriately contained to allow them to become established. The applicants subsequently planted with grasses with a wild purchase part of the landscape culture in 2021. And given the evidence showing stability of the vegetated block prior to 2021, it appears that historically the site was able to avoid erosion with the installation and proper maintenance of riparian vegetation. Regarding subsection 2, the Planning Commission found that the evidence in the record does not show that 2 higher priority methods of erosion control work. The applicant provided an analysis from geotechnical engineering and coastal engineering experts, as well as a certified arborist who concluded, as summarized by the applicant, that quote, there are no non-structural interventions that would adequately protect the property and the vegetative recommended by project engineers is the only viable option to protect the property from coastal erosion and flooding, close quote. The applicant argues that clay burritos, the shoreline stabilization advocated by opponents, are structures as the municipal code 1704-010 defines structure, and therefore do not qualify as planting or recurring vegetation under priority 2. The planning commission disagrees and finds that the vegetated burritos do not meet the definition of a structure because they are not permanently affixed or attached to the ground and are readily portable. The planning commission finds that the applicant's expert statements without or do not demand a conclusion of clay burritos or higher priority non-structural erosion methods of work on the property as required by the municipal code. The appellant's response is that the planning commission found site is able to avoid erosion with the installation and proper maintenance of riparian vegetation, and as such did not find demand for shoreline stabilization. The appellant makes the following arguments as to why this is incorrect. Number 1, the planning commission misinterpreted and misapplied the erosion control will not be standard. Number 2, flavoring improvements are irrelevant to the standard because they do not follow their erosion control priority as planting riparian vegetation. Number 3, even under the planning commission's misinterpretation of the code, the application satisfies the erosion control priority standard. Number 4, the appellant argues that the planning commission's justification for disregarding expert opinions from Soterra, coastal engineer Dave Simpson, and Ecoterra are untenable. The staff comment is that subsection 1 establishes a progressive prioritization for different types of erosion control measures. These types may be grouped into 2 categories: non-structural, A and B, which addresses the maintenance of vegetation, planting vegetation appropriate for the shoreline environment, and structural, C, D, and E, which are purpose-built structures constructed on the ocean shore. This distinction is consistent with the state of Oregon's local definition of a beachfront protected structure, as found in the erosion or on the guidebook on erosion control practices for the Oregon codes produced by the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development. The municipal code does not include the term nature-based solutions. There are no definitions or criteria outside of the structural versus non-structural types of erosion control measures. Non-riprap erosion control measures, such as clay burritos, are considered a shoreline stabilization structure under both municipal code and state regulations, and applications for that site would be reviewed as a conditional use similar to an application for riprap. And subsection 2 requires proposals for structural erosion control measures to demonstrate that higher priority units will not work. And this ties in with the establishment of need as previously discussed. Continuing on, the question before council is whether the applicant has demonstrated that a higher priority type of shoreline stabilization is insufficient to provide erosion control protection for the subject property as required by the municipal code 1786-230D. This determination is directly relevant to the determination of need for shoreline stabilization structure at the subject property as required by 1786-80. This determination as to whether or not the applicant has demonstrated higher priority erosion control measures are insufficient for the subject property must be based on evidence and testimony in the record and by preponderance of that evidence. And moving into criteria number 3, 1786-230E qualifications for beachfront protection. The planning commission's findings are that the commission found that this provision places a higher requirement to show a need than most conditional uses, which only require showing a demand exists for a particular use. For beachfront protection, there is a requirement to show a quote critical need exists to protect a property from by erosion hazard. The evidence in the record shows the primary threat this property faces at this time is from wave overtopping of the block due to its location in a high wave energy area. And the applicant's evidence does not establish that the vegetative riprap structure will do anything to prevent that. Regarding erosion, at this time, the edge of the block is currently approximately 30 feet from the home, and its 2004 projects that the rate of erosion will increase currently approximately 5 feet per decade to approximately 15 feet per decade, with erosion control in place. Given that the rate of erosion and the distance between the block and the home, the structure will not be threatened by erosion for 2 decades. Based on this information, the planning commission found that there is not a critical need for proposed vegetative riprap, and that the applicant had not demonstrated that a higher priority method of erosion control is insufficient for the property. The appellant's response is that there is a critical need for structural erosion control measure found in such property, and the planning commission made 2 untenable decisions. 1, wave overtopping and incumbent flooding are an immediate and increasing threat to the home's structural stability and constitute the critical need for prevention. 2, the code does not require homeowners to wait until their home is actively being destroyed in order to get shoreline protection. The appellant asserts the planning commission's findings ignore an immediate risk to the home posed by wave overtopping and ongoing water erosion, and that the findings disregard the application's expert testimony regarding hazardous construction. The appellant argues that the commission has taken an overly narrow view regarding the critical needs standards, and that the applicants do not need to demonstrate that the structure is in danger in order to be eligible for consideration or protection from coastal erosion. The appellant asserts that evidence in the record sufficiently demonstrates that an immediate need to protect the structure exists at present. And the staff comment is that the question before council is whether the applicant has demonstrated that the application is consistent with the qualifications for future protection as established by Municipal Code 17E623E, and whether the applicant has demonstrated a critical need to protect the property from coastal erosion hazards. This determination of whether or not the applicant has demonstrated need or demand must be based on evidence and testimony in the record and the components of that evidence. And that concludes the statement.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, so I'm gonna call for public testimony and state that the request will be reviewed against the criteria of Municipal Code Chapter 17.80, conditional uses. The hearing will be held on the record and no new evidence will be allowed into the record. Oral testimony will be limited as specified by the council below. Oral testimony is limited to 15 minutes for the appellant, 3 minutes for proponents and opponents, 15 minutes for proponents and opponents if representing a group of 5 or more people, and 3 minutes for the appellant's rebuttal. The pertinent criteria to be considered are identified in the staff report, which were made available to the public 7 days in advance of this hearing. Staff has analyzed the appeal issues relying on the reasoning set forth by the Planning Commission's decision. Persons who testify shall first receive recognition from the mayor, state their full name and mailing address, and if appearing in the representative capacity, identify whom they represent. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or with reference to record evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue includes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed condition of approval with sufficient detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issues precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Is there a presentation by the appellant applicant?
Yeah, there is.
Okay. And just review that, you got 15 minutes or less once you start.
Alright.
Well, not.
No,
No, we'd like you to stay upstairs. Trying to get this, and to, Attorney Ryan's point, the picture quotes in this are all either in the planning commission presentation or in the application materials in front of the planning commission. There's no new evidence. Slide deck.
Thank you.
Alright. So, I'm Will Rasmussen, Illinois on behalf of applicant Amy Siegel and Marty, who's also with us. You're gonna have a brief discussion from the homeowner today, and I'm gonna run through the approval criteria. I want to say I think the staff, the board does a commendable job of framing the issues up on appeal, the differences of opinion between what the planning commission decided and what I think is an appropriate decision for the city. We also have Adam Reese, engineering geologist, if there's any specific technical questions from counselors as we go. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Amy Siegel, and my mailing address is 9515 Southeast 15th Street in Bellevue, Washington. But as I've said at this meeting before, we want our mailing address to be our Cannon Beach home. And we're just yearning to move here and make this our home. Thanks for hearing our appeal. And I want to do a shout out to staff who at every stage of this process have been so kind to me and to my family. And I just really appreciate the responsiveness and your courtesy and kindness. And to the council, because you guys have gone through hundreds of pages of testimony and documentation, and I appreciate it. Our appeal to you is urgent. We don't have the time to try poorly researched or misrepresented places. Our bluff is eroding as we speak. If you went by today, you saw great erosion. And as Adam points out, it can swiftly fail in one major wave event. And once we lose that vegetation, Oregon law prohibits us from extending our berm past the new vegetative line. So we'll have even more of a slope problem and less of a fix. We can't wait 20 years to fix this. On a personal note, Marty and I are so eager to reside in Cannon Beach. This has been our dream since the mid-1980s when we first bought property here. And again, we can't make that move until our home is safe. Will points out to me that we've tried more different efforts to address our erosion problem than I think anybody else along the beach. We installed burritos in 2007. We did cobble at Booker Willows more recently. We've brought more expertise to this issue, specifically seeking the type of experts that even Mayor Knopf suggested. Our property has been assessed by a geotechnical engineer, an engineering geologist, a coastal engineer, a certified arborist who specializes in vegetarian-based coastal erosion, and a coastal engineer. And they all conclude, as you've heard, the softer solution, including a burrito-type structure, can't work because of the intensity of waves that just reach our bluff. These softer solutions would just very quickly shred. We've been obedient. We've tried very hard to be good citizens. We've researched every suggestion that our opponents have brought to the fore, that commissioners have made or counselors, and we've brought forth at every we've actually done a deep dive at every single one of these suggestions. I want to remind you that the city and the state designed the pothole fix that we most recently attempted. We connected with out-of-state engineers that Cameron suggested. None was willing to engage with us or to engineer. Our partners came on site. We explored the solutions in the process proposed for the cooler rate. It's all well and good for opponents to declare that there must be a vegetative solution. But no one has come up with one, no one has suggested one, and no one will put their stamp on one, because they really don't work. Planning Commission seems to have just ignored the very certain damage and destruction to our home that has been identified by professional engineers. The eroding bluff allows waves to get closer and closer to our home. And as local building professionals, and we've had 4 examine and see if there was a solution. As they say, and as engineers all point out, those waves will cause structural damage if they're not stopped immediately. Our application and our appeal have widespread support. Neighbors to the north, south, and east have written letters, have spoken in person, and on our behalf, and have joined us tonight. Numerous community members, I think I counted a couple dozen. Our small bit of oceanfront makes up 0.5–10,000% of the Cannon Beach littoral zone. Vegetative riprap is going to have no effect on the health of our people. And the ocean engineer includes that. And the Cannon Beach littoral zone is gaining sand. 273,649 cubic yards since 1997. Your code plainly allows vegetative development in situations such as ours. It's in the code for a reason. So I thank you for considering our appeal. We will plead with you to allow us to protect our home, just like our neighbors have done, before it's too late. And I thank you again for your service to the community and for coming on this journey with us. Thank you.
Well said, Mimi. I'm gonna try to hustle through my slides, in case try to talk to the council. Brief recap, there's some very unique, conditions to this site. It has a very, very small bluff that's fully undercut. It's fully undercut because the waves hit it. It's not a gentle slope, extremely steep. This picture of the bluff, you can see it's about 6 or 7 feet high. You might see pictures of other bluffs later today, either from us, rebuttal, or opponents. You will see all of those bluffs are taller, and most of them have angular rock at the bottom of them. Those are very material differences in trying to compare the two sites. And really the crucial issue that the Planning Commission did not address is that those waves you can see in the bottom right are getting closer and closer to the house. And the engineers that have looked at this, including Certera and Dave Simpson, all conclude that that can result and likely will result in structural damage and potential destruction of the home if it's not stopped. So you heard Robert summarize the Planning Commission's decision that said, well, there's 30 feet, and at the rate of erosion, you got years and years and years until destruction happens. That destruction will happen way before the bluff actually reaches the house because it's such a low site and because of the damage that those waves, which are mapped by the federal government and documented by the engineers, reach the house and destroy it. This picture on the left, by the way, is from April of 2023. That's just one storm season after the sand was placed in front, cobble was placed in front, and it was planted. All of the sand is washed away, as you can see. All of the cobble is washed away, as you can see, and all of the planting either washed away or filled. You might be able to see there's some little dead little plants still kind of sleeping up there, but they didn't have a chance because of the high energy waves there. The Planning Commission concluded that if that would have been properly maintained, somehow that would have worked. I have no idea. All of the soil is lost, all of the cobble is lost. How do you try to maintain that in a way that works? This is just another angle from the north side of the house showing the waves pushing storm debris up by the house. As you can see in this picture, it's several meters away already. If more of that bluff is lost, house could well go with. We have new information and additional expertise in response to what we heard from the first time around from the planning commission, particularly Mayor Knob, suggested we reach out to Cameron at Orca, and Councilman McCarthy said if we just could produce an expert who specializes in soft measures, that might have made the difference for her. We ended up finding Dan Collins, Nico Terra. He has 15 years. He's an arborist who specializes almost exclusively in non-structural solutions. He's worked for King County and other governmental entities on using hooker willows, particularly to stabilize eroding shorelines. He has deep expertise in this area. We also picked up coastal engineer Dave Simpson, who has over 40 years of experience working with the federal government and in private consulting on coastal engineering projects. He has real expertise in paving forces on structures. So when he concludes that if we let those waves reach the house, we can get around the soils of the house, it risks the foundation, it risks the structural integrity of the home. And Sir Terra provided a more detailed alternatives analysis that runs through everything that's been raised, from cobble berms to clay burritos, vegetative structures, in 11 pages of their geotechnical assessment. All of these experts I just rattled through actually visited the site, looked at the conditions, applied their expertise, and reached their conclusions. Robert really, I won't summarize this, did a great job summarizing the key off scale. I just will say it boils down to, did we show that it's more likely than not that the demand or critical need exists here? I believe it does, because those waves are reaching the home, and it's completely unrebutted that when they do, it poses serious structural damage to the home. And the second key substantive issue is, would lesser protective measures, such as maintenance, replanting, riparian vegetation, work to protect the property under Cannon Beach's preferred methods for trying to address coastal erosion? Underlying both of those is a debate on, can the planning commission, in my phrase, can the planning commission disregard the expert analysis we provided based on non-expert assertion? The staff report cites to kind of the legal precedent area, which is generally you need another expert testimony, or you need a compelling reason to disregard an expert testimony in their area of expertise. I don't believe that exists here. I believe the conclusions you've heard from the experts are correct. Evidentiary standard, again, it's in the staff report. A preponderance of evidence means evidence which is of greater weight or more convincing than evidence which is offered in opposition to it. That's the evidentiary standard here. Now, regarding demand or need, here there's waves that we're talking just over the short block. This is one of the low elevation homes in the city. It's one of only a handful of homes in the city, actually in the moderate wave action area mapped by FEMA. The bluff takes direct hits of wave energy and twice completely washed away the planting stand and cobble. One new fact actually that we didn't have last time around that was noted in this application set is that bluff, actually between the bluff and the home, the elevation comes downwards. So the height of the bluff right now, if it comes back a foot, it's actually creates a peak elevation of that bluff that's a little bit lower than where it currently is, which might be why the waves are getting closer and closer and closer to the home. And the picture from the north showing the waves coming in. Dogami shows it's in the high hazard zone. I suspect the counselors remember this map, but the little line with triangles is the moderate wave action zone. That's FEMA's mapping for areas that are expected to have structural damage from waves. These are just some quotes, and again, this is unrebutted expert documentation of the need here. With the continued retreat of the bluff, reduced return of elevation of the bluff face, and eastward movement of wave runoff, risk of structural damage to the existing structures is significantly increased. If the bluff fronting of Siegel residence becomes compromised by erosion, structural damage of the house would likely result from occurrence of a base flood event or a series of storm events. And again, there's just no oppositional evidence that says these waves reaching the home do not jeopardize the home. You can see here, they're just a couple of meters away already. The second key issue is whether alternative vegetation options will work. As Mimi said, they've tried that 3 times now, twice with cobbled sand and willows, and twice it was all washed away in 1 year. The wave energy at this site is just too much. Coastal engineers, geologic engineering geologists, all concluded that a burrito type structure would not work because the wave energy is too high. Similarly, the arborist, a certified ecologic restoration expert from Ecoterra, who specializes in willow plantings, found that the wave energy is just too high at this site for vegetative options, including burritos, to work. This is just showing what we're proposing. Vegetative riprap is the middle option that we're proposing here. And DLC's own guidebook on page 35 says, you can kind of see it in the highlighting up there, 5th bullet point down. Is DLC's own vegetative stabilization does not provide the same level of protection as riprap and is only suited for areas with mild to moderate erosion. Nobody has argued. You said it for a minute. Yeah, okay, thank you for the heads up. Nobody has said that there's not high erosion here. DLCD's guidebook, it says it's not appropriate. All of the experts conclude that these lesser measures will not work. Ecoterra, the arborist, ecologist, to be frank, in my opinion, vegetative plants alone or burrito type erosion mitigation measure would not work. Certerra, which is the same thing, says it will not work because of the high energy wave action over topic. Coastal engineer, same thing, high wave energy is too high for these lesser measures to work. And you've seen this video, everybody here has seen this video before, so I won't play it again. I will just point out, this is a half mile north, this is right at, but it's a half mile north sitting on a berm. But this berm, that you can see these big logs being washed up and smashed into it, it's about twice as big as Mimi's berm. And you see those big logs come up and crash into it, and logs not quite that big, but logs are starting to wash over Mimi's berm up right next to her house. And when that gets a little bit worse, it destroys the home. I don't think there's another property in the city that has greater need than Mimi's home. So if you're not gonna prove it here, I don't know why you have it in your code. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there presentations by proponents, those who support this appeal? And remember, you will 3 minutes once you're ready to start. 3 minutes once you're ready to start. Yeah.
Yes. So my name is Pete Gombo. My address is 3863 Ocean Avenue. So I am 2 houses, 2nd house north of Phoebe's house. So my hats really off to her amount of effort she's put into trying to get this thing accomplished. I will say that just pre-COVID by a year, I was down the beach after a storm, and from my property, which my bank is substantially different, it's not hard or soft, it's clay. And 10 feet out from that, sand was all washed out, and it was clay, 10 feet out. So that's 10 feet that has kind of eroded from our property over what kind of time? I don't know, but it's eroded. And I think that she needs to be able to protect her house. So far, our bank is okay. So we'll see how it lasts. But that's really what I'm saying, that I think she deserves the opportunity. I think she's shown that the cobbles don't work. So I know mine washed away in 1 year, my cobble. Second time I did it, I lost 2/3 that year. And now I've done my last one. So we're gonna see what happens this year. And then maybe back here she'd say, hey. Anyway, that's it.
Okay.
I think you should prove it.
Other questions?
3 minutes.
You never get it back.
Very good out, so that.
No, we don't sell minutes, yes.
Hey, you're kind.
I am being kind, but just the facts, man. Hi.
Oh, Alan Cantor, P.O. Box 1392, Cannon Beach. So I just want to say that I've followed this case from the beginning, and the Seagulls have obviously done their due diligence, their research. They've got a lot of support from all our neighboring properties. They've got other community support at these meetings to get this done. There seems to be more support than lack thereof support. Cannon Beach is a really good community. These are good people. You know, people should be trusting the experts that they hire, not people that are close to this are not experts. It seems to me that the vegetative riprap is really the only solution, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense as to why it's in the city of Cannon Beach code if no one's allowed to have it. And their property seems to be the prime example of why it's necessary. I love this community, and I would hope that the elected leaders of this community would do the right thing to protect the Seagulls property rather than letting people that are not experts sort of dictate what happens to their home. We all know that if it was your home, you would want to protect it just as much as they want to protect it. So I'm asking for your support to support their home.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Hi, we're James, and my address is PO Box 216, Alabama. And we are Marty Means next door neighbors to their south. And I saw when they put the last two burritos in, and I saw that they were in one season completely gone. There's nothing that, there wouldn't be any maintenance that could be done at that point. When the waves come in, they're in charge and they take over. And property that I have is, I've seen it since the 60s. My grandparents built a house there, and there's no question that it's what they have had in front of their houses, but a lot of it's been washed away, and they're lower than we are, and it's in imminent danger. So it seems like, Alan said, and everybody has said, that they should be entitled to keep their home safe, and, they would like to live there full time, and we'd like to have them there full time. And it doesn't seem fair that, just because they're lower, they're not allowed to have the same riprap that 98% of the beach has. I mean, I may not know it's 90, but most, if you walk, I've walked up and down the whole beach and you see it, most of the places, and the other people that they don't have it are considerably higher. They have to be the lowest elevation off the sand of any place on Cannon Beach that has home. So I definitely would encourage you guys to support their being able to protect their home. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents? No one wants to talk?
I will speak as a comment.
Sure. You'll get 3 minutes.
I'll do less than that here. So Adam Reese, with Certera, certified engineering geologist, 2411 Southeast 8th Avenue, Camas, Washington. Oh, good. Okay. Just wanted to say that you've seen a lot of the comment reports and everything like that in the file. To me, it's really amazing, the command of all of this that Mimi has. It's pretty impressive. Everything that she said is very accurate. Really what the primary issue here is they have a limited buffer as it is, and losing any of that buffer puts them substantially at risk. So when you speak of the 30 feet, the planning commission brought up that they have, we have lots of time until this is a problem. As the bluff pumps over, it becomes dramatically more at risk. That first 5-10 feet that they would lose. That is, those of you who visited can see it's hanging over all of these. So if you all have any questions or anything like that, I have a minute and a half left to ask them, or we can do that later.
That would be later. Yeah. Thank you. Other proponents? Are there people online? Okay,
I'm very sure.
okay, Richard, you ready?
Yeah. Audio's on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
But you can't see me.
That's okay.
Okay, should I wait for the video or just start to speak?
You're fine to just speak if you want to. But remember, start out with your first, last name and your address, and you're gonna have 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm Richard Cummins, and this is my wife, Jenny. We're longtime friends of Mimi and Marty Siegel. We have attended a previous meeting on Zoom and have tried to follow this process.
Over the years, we've visited the Siegel home in Cannon Beach many times with our children and our grandchildren, and we have many fond memories. But also over those years, we too have witnessed all the erosion that's taken place. We haven't attended all these meetings, but we've tried to follow the progression of the issue before you tonight. And we've heard the city's concern for people who are unhoused. And I just wanted to take this time tonight, we wanted to take the time to let you know that the Siegels share that concern and compassion. And in fact, those values have made up their life work.
Ever since Marty and I met in medical school about 57 years ago, Marty stood out as a man of quiet integrity, always thinking of others first, beloved by all who came to know him. Marty was highly respected for his expertise in infectious diseases, but what really made him stand out as a doctor in the Seattle area was his unfailing willingness to go back into the hospital many, many times at night to treat the uninsured, homeless people who were all for suffering from addiction or AIDS. Marty was a legend, particularly with the nurses at Swedish Hospital, because they knew if they called Marty Siegel, even at 4 o'clock in the morning, he would come in, whereas many other doctors would turn them down.
At the same time, Mimi had her career as the CEO of Kettering Center. And you might not be familiar with that in Cannon Beach, but it's a nationally known neurodevelopmental center for medically fragile or developmentally disabled children. They had many programs there, but Mimi made a point of creating a program for disabled children or special needs children who were living with their families in cars or completely unhoused. It was called Families in Transition, and it ended up becoming a national model. We mention all this to you because we want you to know that the Siegels are really caring people. They share your values and they'll contribute to your town, as I'm sure you know. When we're down there, we go walking on the beach, we can see that many of the Siegels' neighbors along that stretch of beach are already protected by riprap, and it only seems fair to us that you treat them with the same idea, and allow them to protect their home as you have allowed these other people. They look forward to many more years of living at Cannon Beach, and we look forward to visiting there more. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Other people? Proponents? Okay, anybody else in the audience? Okay, thank you. Are there presentations by opponents? Okay, Dan?
Hopefully you can help me. I tried to dial into the studio. And I'm in this question of you. No, it's hard to see some pictures sometimes on slides, so I have come to the problem.
Can I ask what that handout was that was just given to the other counselors in the room?
They'll be in the slide, and the slide presentation, I just gave them so that they could see them a little better. I know sometimes it's hard to see it on the slide. So it will be included in what you will see in my presentation.
Could I ask if this is a presentation that's subject to the 15-minute or the 3-minute limit? I'm asking the mayor.
5 minutes, isn't it?
Just a second, I'll look.
He's representing.
I'm representing a group of more than 5 people.
So you get 15 minutes, but let's
Okay.
keep going.
Thank you.
I think Eric's question is this, and was this
Right.
part, this was submitted to the planning commission? This is part of the record?
Is it part, yes, it's part of the record. And, so how do I share? I didn't dial into the meeting quick enough, and if you don't do it before it starts, it doesn't let me do it. I'm sorry, it's having to override that. Ooh. There we go. Thank you. Okay, Diana Turner, PO Box 211, Hammond Beach. And tonight I'm speaking for Friends of the Dunes, a local grassroots group that is your neighbors and extends beyond your neighbors to people across the country. And to address Councillor Ryan, I wanted to note that during the planning commission process, I had the appeal packet from their first application placed into this application. So in what I'm presenting today, all pieces are part of the record. And Robert can verify that he went through and restamped those attachments to be correct for this application. So our group, can you give me a little heads up on where I get like 5 minutes?
You've used 1 minute so far.
Okay,
You have 14 left.
okay, so I wanted to make sure that you knew that Friends of the Dunes does not have a position that there should never be riprap. Because I do believe that there may be a time in a situation where it is an appropriate solution. And we all learned that in the educational seminar this summer. So this is not, we're not saying no, never. We're saying that we don't see that the high standard that our code demands has been met in this case. I also want to say that I have great compassion for the Siebels. I know that they are feeling uncomfortable with their home and they're making a life change to possibly move into it. Retirement does that. We look at our property in a different way. Maybe it has stairs, we have other considerations. And I hear their discomfort. And I know that, they say that they've owned it since the 80s. I know that how you feel about your house changes. We purchased ours 17 years ago. And I knew at that time I couldn't stomach living on the literal edge of of land. I couldn't be oceanfront, but I purchased in tsunami zone. And if I were buying today, I probably wouldn't be brave enough to do that. So I understand that things change. And I also really appreciate you guys taking on this work. I know it's hard. I know it's not fun to make these tough decisions. And I especially appreciate that you're struggling with our code and that it's not as clear as you would like it to be. I agree. I want to help make it better. But, it's the code we have, and it does support, vegetative solutions. We have vegetative burritos in town. They are successful, therefore we know that they can be approved here. Also, our code is never gonna be able to have every type of, structure in it. Right now, at the Cola Creek Stabilization Project, FEMA has given the city $200,000 to work on a design. It has no name. Artificial log jam with vegetative support on sides. You're not gonna see that in code. If we ever get the money to build it and we bring it to planning commission, I sure hope that they will approve it, even though that is not in our code. I'll make sure I'm getting on this. And also, as far as our code, Commissioner Moritz, who is an environmental attorney and a scientist, felt very comfortable saying that it was included in our code at 17.8230 section D1B, planting of riparian vegetation, and the planning commission accepted that. What's new in this application? And remember, this is the 7th hearing for them to try to get their riprap, is that, they've added a new coastal engineer. I would note that he has been retired for a long time and has no experience in nature-based or vegetation stabilization. And in his report, he is using hard armor criteria and applying it to soft structures and saying that because the soft structures aren't meeting that criteria, they have failed. That is inappropriate. He's also using FEMA guidelines from the 80s. So those are my concerns. He's also saying that, and this is a quote, if bluff retreat is allowed to continue to the backside of the bluff, elevation will begin to decrease, exposing the Seagulls residents to ever greater risk of wave overtopping and structural damage. This is true for every slide on an ocean. That's always the case. You're always going to get this. And if that was all you needed to get a riprap revetment, we wouldn't have goal 18. That's like saying, I should be able to cut any tree on my property because it might grow taller, it might get sick, the soil might get too wet, a big windstorm might come and it'll top over and hit my house. So I'd like to take this tree out. And our code doesn't allow that because codes aren't built for worst case scenarios and hypotheticals. All right, so let's go. So this application began with a desire to install riprap revetment. The owner is concerned. Okay. The owner is concerned with near-term impacts of residential to the residential structure and wishes to construct a riprap revetment. So they had a goal in mind. They've been working towards it the whole time. I'm not. Wow, my slides are working. Shoot. I'm totally frozen up, I guess. What do I do? That's weird. Okay, so this is their house last year this time. And you can see they have really healthy European beach grass. Now, this is different from what you heard when they were here in front of you in March, and they said that everything washed away in the first season. Obviously, it did not. The initial conclusions that Mr. Reese accepted as fact and built his report on, the EEI first report, was, and these are quotes, based on information provided by Mike Morgan, we understand a vegetated berm was constructed. 2 attempts were made to protect the bluff by placing 50 cubic yards of loose cobble. We understand all previous attempts at farming and property were ineffective. We understand, or it is our understanding, even with softer solutions described above, the bluff has seen 4 to 5 feet of erosional aggression. All of these things are things that he took at face value from Mike Morgan, who is a self-described city planner and nurseryman. He has no qualifications to be making these statements, and yet a whole report was built on it. Accepted as fact, and built on it. This is unacceptable. So in 2022, Mike Morgan came and asked for this 50 cubic yards of cobble to place at the toe of the embankment. And in these reports, it's been referred to as a cobble berm. But it's not a cobble berm. A cobble berm is a specific type of revetment. It's cobble at the toe of a slope. And you'll remember it was not engineered and there were no permits given. So this is August of this year. And you see the Seagulls home and then you see their neighbors to the south. And you see that again, the vegetation has filled out beautifully and is, getting ready to take the hard hits that winter brings. This is looking north and you see the neighbor's house it's planted with hooker willows, which is the successful planting. And you see that it is doing it's doing much better than the Seagulls property that just has European beach grass. You also should note that half of this lot, the neighbor's lot, does not have riprap. So the left side of the property, there's no riprap. This shows that hooker willow on its own can be successful. It has been for a lot of years. The neighbor just said the house is from the 60s. This is the reverse view looking at the hooker willows on the neighboring property to the south. You see that it's full, it comes straight to the beach, it touches the flat area of the beach. Again, there's no burrito behind it, there's no riprap behind it, at least at the halfway mark, it's just hooker willow. This is a close-up at the property line where you see on the left, the Seagulls Eaton Bank, and on the right, their neighbors filled out hooker willows. This is another example of a successful vegetative stabilization burrito. This is at 3276. It's been here for 20 years. This is another example of a successful vegetative burrito. This is a grouping at 1856 to 1860. It's the one that's highlighted in the guidebook of erosion control. I'm showing it to you in the winter so that you can see that even in the winter, these willows are strong, they come all the way to the beach. So another thing that came up was flooding. So I wanted to talk to you about flooding. This is an overview of the Seagulls property. And you will notice that between their property, 400 and 301, you see the Midway Street right of way and the stairs down. You also can see that the Seagulls have a very small, very narrow side yard. This is the beach steps that are going right up into Midway. This is their evidence, their only evidence, and they've owned this property since the 80s of flooding. Oh, gosh. So you can see, you don't know if it gets to the property at all. This also shows that this is a reverse view. It's showing the property line extending so you get a feel. And then this is what you have to show debris. Again, you have no indication that the debris has even reached their property. This is the side yard, healthy foliage, not beaten by overtopping. There's no evidence of overtopping or flooding on the property or near the house or foundation. This you saw from Peter Ruggiero. No overtopping expected now or projected into the future. They admitted that the erosion control measures that they had in place, the landscaping worked. They say so here. Erosion occurred while erosion. Anyway, I have to get going. So the erosion rates that are projected in these reports are hopping all over the place. 10 feet in the first one, then it goes to 16 feet in the second. The Blue Post letter asks where the analysis is, and I should mention that Jessica Cote did visit their site. She did not do a report. She did visit the site. She looked at the burritos. This is their proof of erosion. This is the successful burrito. All of it is in very high hazard zone. All of it. Their house is in moderate and low. This site, all of it. And then I'm going to hop ahead. These photos were attached to the OPRD letter. On the left, 1967. The yellow line indicates the slope, the edge where vegetation stops, and you have this in your pictures. And the vegetation stops and the beach, you can see where the beach is. On the right, you have 2024. This next slide, those two images have been placed on top of each other. So the yellow line is 67, 57 years ago. The pink line is 24. So the smallest amount of erosion is where you see the yellow line into the pink, it's 0. And the largest amount of erosion is 7.5 feet in 57 years. There's nothing critical here. This is not a critical, it may feel critical, and I understand that. But what hasn't been proven? And critical erosion has not been proven. They have not proven a critical need for riprap. And for that reason, we ask you to uphold your planning commission's denial of this application. Please deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other opponents in the audience? Okay, are there opponents online?
Yeah, two. Got Eric.
Good evening, Eric.
Good evening. Is there a way to turn my video on, or am I just on sound here?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if there's not. Oh, cool. Great. Good evening, Eric Riston, here on behalf of Oregon Shores Conservation Coalition and the Surfrider Foundation. So I'd like to ask for the 15 minutes. I'm not going to get anywhere near that. I think I'll be a lot closer to 3 minutes. You all have heard a lot, but just so I don't get buzzed for going over if I do.
Could we please get your mailing address?
Yeah, 3141 East Burnside Street, Portland, Oregon.
Thank you.
Great. Like I said, Eric Riston, I'm an attorney at Crag Law Center, here representing Oregon Shores Conservation Coalition and the Surfrider Foundation. Just want to address off the bat the written testimony that we submitted last week that was talked about at the beginning regarding the on the record status of this hearing. We stated in that comment that everything in there was submitted below, including the pictures in there, which were given in a presentation by Surfrider below. I apologize, that was stated in a footnote. Next time I will put that in the header in bright red font, so it's not missed, but just, do want to encourage the council to read that comment submitted by my clients. There's no new evidence in there. And do kind of want to generally object to the exclusion of all of the written public testimony that was submitted. I think that's problematic for the city to invite that testimony and then exclude it without any actual consideration of whether it included new evidence or not. That out of the way, again, want to be relatively quick here. I think Diana and Friends of the Dunes have done a really great job of documenting why the applicant has not met their burden here to demonstrate the need for this proposal or to show why less harmful alternatives won't work and why the Planning Commission really made the right decision below based on the evidence in the record. Riprap preventments are a really extreme measure, as you all know, and as my clients discussed in their comments below, again, reaffirmed in the comments submitted here, the eventual outcome of any riprap preventment is going to be the loss of the dry sand beach in front of it and accelerated erosion to the side of it. Any structure is going to hasten erosion in front of it and prevent the bluff from moving backward, meaning the beach slowly disappears. Dynamic that is only hastened with the impacts of sea level rise that we're experiencing right now. You really only need to look at places like Lincoln Beach or the Salishan Spit, which Surfrider showed pictures of at the Planning Commission hearing, which were resubmitted in the comment we submitted to you all, to understand just how quickly the beach can disappear when you start approving structures like these. Effectively, any riprap approval is sacrificing the public beach for the protection of private beachfront homes. And it's for that reason that the city's code makes getting a permit for riprap really hard. I acknowledge and am empathetic with applicants who struggle to get these structures, but again, it's for a reason that it's so hard. The code recognizes the importance of the beach and tries to ensure that it's protected. Accordingly, it puts the burden on the applicant to demonstrate that it needs a structure, that no other alternatives are available, and that the structure will not adversely impact the beach or the environment or public rights. And again, that's all a really heavy burden. And the Planning Commission spent a lot of time and a lot of thoughtful effort in considering whether the applicant had met it and came to the right conclusion here, that they simply hadn't. I want to address a couple of the specific legal claims made by the appellant. First, they attempt to argue that the Planning Commission should have disregarded testimony submitted by the public because their expert reports contradict it. This is not correct. There was a lot of evidence submitted by the public that the Planning Commission correctly relied on, including basic facts and photos and reliable scientific reports by experts, and the report submitted or the testimony submitted by Blue Coast Engineering. All of that's perfectly fine for the Planning Commission to rely on. Regardless, again, the burden is on the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the standards here. And the Planning Commission identified why they didn't think that the evidence the applicant submitted met the standards and denied the application. That's exactly what the Planning Commission is tasked with doing. It didn't do anything wrong by doing that. Second, the argument that clay burritos don't need to be considered, again, wrong for a number of reasons. The city's code requires shoreline stabilization structures be the minimum necessary and minimize environmental impact. In those requirements, there's inherently a requirement to analyze any less harmful alternative, including in this case, the clay burritos. It doesn't matter if it's explicitly listed or not. It's a less harmful alternative, less impactful alternative. It had to be considered. That's pretty clear, I think, in the structure and intent of the code. The final thing I want to talk about is just something I think's gotten missed in a lot of past hearings on this application. The city council should deny this proposal, deny the appeal, because the applicant has not met their burden to demonstrate the need, or that there are not less harmful alternatives available to this structure. Issues which I know have been the brunt of discussion tonight and are the focus of the appellant's appeal. But the city council is allowed to, in the code, allowed to consider issues not raised in the appeal. And I just want to quickly highlight a couple additional reasons why this application needs to be denied, including that the applicant is required to demonstrate beach access is maintained and that there are no long-term impacts to the public. And they didn't submit really any evidence regarding the long-term impact of this structure to the public beach. That dynamic that I was talking about earlier, that my clients and others submitted a lot of evidence on below regarding the long-term impact of a structure like this. They don't really respond to that. There's a couple cursory sentences, nothing that really gets to it. Really similarly, there's also a requirement that the environmental impact of the structure be analyzed. And again, really no discussion or evidence regarding compliance with that standard in the report. Just statements that it won't impact the environment negatively, won't negatively impact fish and wildlife, which is far from the kind of evidence you'd expect to see in an application like this to establish evidence to meet criteria like that. You'd expect to see some kind of wildlife report or survey report of what kind of birds or invertebrates or fish might be impacted here, and there's none of that. Both of those issues are detailed again in the first two sections of the comment we submitted that I encourage you to review. They get in a little bit more detail, but just wanted to raise those. With that, I'll close out and just say thank you for the opportunity to speak here. From what I've seen, you all and the city of Cannon Beach as a whole really takes these applications seriously, and I really appreciate that because these are serious issues with serious risks, and I know these are not easy decisions to make. So I appreciate you all for being here and listening and taking it all seriously.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes. Aaron.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm Cameron LaFollette, Executive Director of Oregon Coast Alliance, and so representing a group. And ask for the full 15 minutes, not that I will probably take it.
Thank you.
Our mailing address is P.O. Box 857, Astoria 97103. I also want to start by objecting to the letter that I sent in this afternoon being excluded from consideration by the council. It was 1 1/2 pages long, so it certainly does not qualify as a long piece of testimony. And it also contained no new evidence. And without any substantive review of the testimony, it has been excluded from the record, and that's not appropriate. The principal thing that I want to concentrate on is that at one of the hearings below, and there have been so many that it's difficult to remember which one, but it was one of the ones in 2024, I suggested on Orca's behalf that perhaps there might be an opportunity for collaboration in this matter rather than endless hearings with different parties at loggerheads, and offered to work with Will Rasmussen and with the Seagulls to provide resources, engineers and firms that specialize in or have experience with other forms of shoreline protection than riprap, which I followed up with Mr. Rasmussen on, as he details in his testimony, in his one of his submissions. The principal person that I suggested that he contact at the time was Dr. Megan Wengrove, who is an associate professor in coastal engineering at Oregon State University. He emailed her in April of 2025 and with several questions related to the Seagull property and the use of non-riprap alternatives, and received a reply. Luckily for the Planning Commission, or for the City Council, he included her entire email, because in his summary of her email, he left out a couple of her comments that I think the City Council might want to pay particular attention to. And I quote here from her email to Will. She says, "I can't offer anything specific that would put OSU at a liability, and I don't have my own liability insurance for these types of projects. But if the homeowners wanted to experiment with something, we could chat more. I generally don't recommend riprap because it will usually create other problems." So there's no indication in the record from Mr. Rasmussen or from the Seagulls that this open door from Dr. Wengrove was followed up on with further conversations and exploration of alternatives to riprap. And I think that given all of the back and forth on what really is the case and what has been done in the past and what has not been done in the past, that's fairly telling. Here's a primary principal expert in the field offering to chat further about directions and options and opportunities for non-riprap protection of the site that was not, as far as the record shows, followed up on. And that's the principal thing I wanted to say, other than to also remind council that one of the Planning Commission's findings was that this house is at least 30 feet from the bluff. This is not a situation like you see occasionally in coastal pictures of houses or the seawalls in front of them falling onto the beach. This is not an emergency. This is not a situation that needs riprap. It is a situation in which there are a lot of opportunities for experiment and really looking seriously at what alternatives there are from professionals who have been offering the assistance. So we recommend that City Council uphold the Planning Commission's detailed findings and deny the requested riprap permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Elena London.
Right now, we're in proponents or opponents. Are there any other opponents that would like to speak? In the audience or on Zoom? Okay, does the applicant wish to offer any rebuttal? Wasn't getting her time.
Yeah,
Would you like to?
you guys will go?
Yes,
Yeah.
and you will get 3 minutes once you're ready.
Try to be quick. I just want to point out of the gate that nobody in opposition said that the Seagulls home is not at risk of structural damage, as was concluded by the 3 engineers that looked at this, of waves coming up to the foundation of the home and potentially destroying the home. There was a lot of photos, a lot of conclusions, but nobody said their home is not at immediate risk of structural damage, as the engineer's report say it is. There were several photos put up in one of the presentations, but the vegetation along the bluff. This is Adam Reese, Soterra. And some of the photos were from spring, showing a lot of vegetation, some from right after the storm season, there's little vegetation. Does any of that change your conclusion about the risk of structural damage to this home if it's not protected?
No, not at all. I encourage you to look at other photos where it's not zoomed right down vegetation, because that's a big part of the story here regarding those buildings all having rock at the base, those slopes.
And there is vegetation on this site. It's just the vegetation we're trying to put to stabilize it, gets blown away with the storms. This is a de minimis site. It's 50 feet wide. Protecting this home is going to have no impact on the sand quality of Cannon Beach. That is one of the conclusions of Dave Simpson, who's an actual expert in this area. Regarding alternatives, there was talk about they said you shouldn't consider clay burritos. I think under your code you shouldn't, but the engineers did study clay burritos and did include it in their 11-page alternatives analysis and explain why they won't work on the site, because of the high energy waves that impact this site. As DLGTV says, those burritos are only appropriate in low to moderate wave energy climates. Cameron Ofolet, I included those comments in the record because they got out they were clean, and actually Cameron quoted part of it that I thought was clean. She pointed out that Professor Wengrove said, if we want to experiment, she could offer some ideas. This is the Seagulls home that engineers have said is at risk of destruction. So I did not take her up on her invitation to experiment with their homes. I did follow up with the 3 separate Washington-based coastal engineers that she suggested that specialize in soft structures, and asked all of them, hey, do you have anything that would work here? Would you come give us a solution? One of them politely declined and said they focus on Washington State. The 2 others did not respond at all. I tried, that's also in the record. This is all in Exhibit 18, if you want to look at it and see exactly what I did and why. And we found Nico Terra, who does specialize in soft solutions, who does specialize in willow plantings to stabilize shoreline. Daniel Collins came down and looked at the site and quickly concluded, because of the high imaging waves, it just won't work here. So we've kind of turned over every rock we can. We've done everything you could hope an applicant could do to try. Planted it 3 times. Every flavor of expert you've asked us to bring that we could find. There's not a lot of expertise in this space, unfortunately. Hopefully that will change over the next couple of decades. We'll get more expertise in this space, but we meet the code criteria. Like, to say they need to let their home be destroyed to find out that there's need is not the right answer. I don't believe that's the right answer. And that's what the record shows. Do you have any questions for me or?
There any questions?
Everyone time for that?
Yeah, right after this, for closing the public hearing. This would be the time.
So, yes. How will riprap solution change the waves that are rushing up through the beach access area, which is all the photos we saw? Is the waves that are coming up the beach access area and then spilling over into the yard, leaving that debris that we've seen. How is riprap gonna change any of that and that kind of flooding?
I think the main point is what you're saying, what the photos of Will's presentation and all that are showing waves run up and they're getting almost there. This stops it basically, so that that buffer is maintained and it doesn't get all the way there, start washing out soils beneath the foundations and start causing impact. So maintaining the buffer that they have right now, not letting it get a meter or two closer where it is affecting it. So it's not that 30 foot, but you know, it recedes back 30 feet and then you have a problem. It's if it gets any closer, then you have a flooding problem.
Again, I didn't see any evidence of wave overtopping and flooding as a result of that. It all seems to be coming from that low area and.
It's most, I believe, I agree with you that it's in large part coming up that where the stairwell is in the public right of way. Our proposal is limited to our 50 feet, because that's what we can control. We talked to Karen Labonte and said, we'd like to rip-wrap around those stairs too. Just to try to prevent that area from getting worse. But the overtopping happens both at the stairs and on what is the northern edge of the applicant's property, the Seagull's property. In the slide deck we have, you can see the water coming in partially onto their property too. But I agree, it's probably the worst at those stairs because they were probably put at the ultimate low point there. We'd like to protect those stairs too, and if the council's directing your new public works director, whoever that might be, to protect it, we gladly submit an application to do that because that's part of the story. That's not the full story.
And how do you respond to the slow rate of erosion that's been discussed and that it's really years away from being a critical need?
Well, you can see the waves come within a couple meters of the home. And as Adam testified, it was documented in both the Certera engineering report and the Simpson engineering report, that bluff, kind of where there's that overhang, actually comes up to elevation that's a little bit higher than when you get closer to the home. So if you take off a couple feet, actually your high point is lower. The risk isn't what's happening in the bluff. The risk is what's happening with the waves that are hitting the bluff hard enough to come over it and get back by the house. So that little bit right there actually makes a big difference, which is probably why we're seeing the waves get closer and closer. Even though there hasn't been a ton of lateral movement by the bluff.
So the riprap you're proposing now is built to the high point that it is now.
That's right. It preserves the current high point, and it's also, as documented in the Eco-Terra report, it's vegetative riprap. And Dan notes in that report, the rocks actually give pockets to give willows a better chance to take root than if you don't have those pockets. That might be one of the reasons why you see more willows immediately to the south where the kind of riprap starts on the neighbor's property or near the property line. And that it is, in his experience, that having those big rocks actually gives a much better chance to get the willows you want to see. And those willows then can have their own good ecological impact on what's going on with those waves and that shoreline too. So I suspect, I should say, if you look at Dan Collins' report, it anticipates those willows being able to take hold and survive, unlike the ones that immediately got washed away the last few times. I would try.
Further questions?
Yeah, I recall from past hearings and both listened to all the planning commission hearings and past hearings in front of the council, that you said, and your engineer said specifically, that riprap is not going to make a difference for wave overtopping. The waves come up over whatever shoreline stabilization is there because of the storm event. It doesn't matter what your stabilization is, the waves are gonna come over it, and there's really very little that can be done. I suppose short of a huge seawall, that's what all we can have, to stop them.
We expect the wave overtopping to continue based on this design. Could build something huge if it was permittable, and the Seagulls actually want that would stop it, but this is to preserve what they have. Adam talked about preserving the buffer. That's what it is, and the pictures of the waves coming within a couple meters of the home is to give them that chance of keeping them off of the home.
So the way that it's stopping where it is right now, if a riprap revetment is built there, is a lot different than if it riprap revetment is built 5 feet back, 10 feet back, 15 feet back.
Right.
So wave overtopping.
But you did say that the overtopping riprap was not going to make a difference as far as overtopping goes. I mean, I remember it distinctly because I think I
Yeah,
asked it.
it's just a little out of
10
context.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't stop the ocean, right?
Yeah.
You know, but it stops the impacts of the house. It being, you know, because they can't build a river revetment where the shoreline is now, and the shoreline recedes 5 more feet. Wave overtopping 5 feet closer to the house, and would have a substantially greater effect than for where it is right now.
Other questions? Eric, anything?
I don't have any questions for him.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you for the time.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and move to consideration. Who would like to start? Eric, would you like to start?
Sure. So, I think our city code has a lot of holes in it, a lot of things that need to be fixed. We need to make our decisions based on what we currently have in our code, not making decisions about what we really wish was in the code. Our code's pretty clear on a lot of the things that were touched on tonight by the applicant with regards to the things that they've done. Our code doesn't require that you do all of the things, working your way up that chain of failure. Our code requires that you rule it out as something that won't work. And I didn't see anything in the record of opponents to this that had visited the site with geotechnical engineers or with the same level of the hydrogeologic engineers, the ecological restoration experts visiting the site to say that this particular site won't fit or will work for this other measure. The only thing I saw in the record was from experts like that was from the applicant, the Nicoterra, the different experts that they hired. I didn't write down all their names for this right now, but those all from the applicant indicating this is the least impactful measure. And I think with some bunch of additional criteria, the conditions that I think we should overturn that. And I don't say that lightly, having been on the planning commission, but because I know how much work I sat through all the planning commission meetings this time. I watched all of them. I sat on it when the application came through the last time. So I'm I'm very familiar with this application. It's rather extensive, and I really do feel like that the city is providing a moving goalpost for this applicant.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the criteria for placing riprap on the beach was being a wonderful person, then the seagulls would have it for sure. But that isn't the law. That's not how land use law works. And years ago, we didn't have the kind of knowledge that we have now about the detrimental effects of riprap on the health of the whole beach. So I'd also like to say that the council should really think carefully before overturning the planning commission when they voted 6-1. I would hardly call that a split vote, characterize it as a split vote, but they voted 6-1 against this application unless the council finds a clear error of law in that they find that there is a violation of, or there was an error of fact that was presented. So just addressing, first of all, what Eric said about the experts, and this was said by Mr. Rasmussen as well and several other people. Experts for the applicant were hired experts, and I don't want to sound demeaning in any way or make any kind of reference to an idea that maybe they're not honest because they were hired, but I will say that having done over 150 trials in my lifetime, I know that each side will have experts, and those experts will come in and say what that particular, they'll bring in experts who are going to support their position. They're not going to not going to enter it into evidence what an expert says unless that expert supports their position. And I also take issue with the characterization of the experts opposing this application as being lay people or non-experts. I don't think that's true at all. I think that the experts relied upon by the planning commission hold just as much weight as the experts hired by the appellant. The shoreline stabilization standards under 1786-230, those have to be examined. And the site had a stable vegetative bluff for 15 years prior to 2021. This bluff was put in, the vegetation was put in 2007, and it wasn't until 2021 that the applicants put in an application to have cobble. So this indicates that it's possible that a vegetative bluff could fit the bill in this case, and the fact that we now have more sophisticated knowledge from years of experimentation and trying to figure out best possible solutions based on best available science. We have more knowledge on what works and what doesn't work, which makes me believe that it is possible, not for sure, but possible that another solution, a less invasive solution than riprap, could be tried to see if that would work. Where riprap is proposed, there must be evidence provided that a higher priority method will not work. And I don't feel like that's been provided, that one of the higher level vegetative solutions would not work. The Planning Commission relied on evidence presented by Blue Coast Engineering, Exhibit D32 at pages 1 and 2, that nature-based or hybrid solutions could be designed that would maintain the bluff and vegetation and have less impact on adjacent properties. The Planning Commission also relied on evidence presented by Surfrider Foundation that shows that the property to the immediate south planted with crooked willows is holding up well. That's exhibit D 29 at 1. The planning commission listened to experts on both sides and found that the multiple experts presenting evidence that higher priority methods should be tried before resorting to riprap was more persuasive. It's like saying you think that it's an argument that one side's experts are better than the other, and because they're from an engineering firm, that their expertise is better than somebody from Surfrider. I really take issue with that, and that their expertise is better than that presented by Blue Coast Engineering. I take issue with that as well. There's appellant cites several cases for the proposition that, well, I already said that, I'm not gonna go through that again. The Planning Commission found that Simpson Evidence Coastal Engineers was based on outdated hard-armoring standards. The certified arborist relied on Alice focus was on very different ecosystems that did not have particular expertise in open coast ecosystems like Cannon Beach. So I don't think it's fair to base a decision because you think, because one side had hired experts. The people opposing this application didn't have, they have no skin in the game. They don't have a client who's paying them money to hire experts. I'm sorry, but that just is the truth. There is a list of criteria which must be met to qualify for structural shoreline stabilization methods for beachfront protection. All must be met, but the first one here is there's a critical need to protect property that is threatened by erosion hazard. And I don't believe that has been met, that there's a critical need. The standard is higher than in the conditional use criteria cited by the previous speaker, which just needs to show that a demand exists. When there are conflicting criteria in general, the specific is the one that applies. Here, the primary threat to the property is wave overtopping, which will not be mitigated by riprap. And I recall that the attorney for the Seagulls had admitted as much. Moreover, given the rate of erosion and the distance between the bluff and the home, the structure will not be threatened by erosion for 2 decades. This doesn't meet the threshold that will need to justify riprap. I don't know if, this is a question for the attorney, land use attorney. We had a presentation, the whole planning commission and the council in July, on July 15th on shoreline management, coastal ecosystems, and both planning commission and the city council were in attendance. So can I reference something that was said at that hearing?
Councilor Kerr, no, that is not in the record of this quasi judicial matter.
So I'm just trying to recall if there was anything in the record referring to, because somebody referred to it today. I don't know if that would count.
I believe I saw something in the Friends of the Dunes comments that referred to that same presentation, but it's my understanding that that presentation is, there's no dispute that that is not in the record for this quasi judicial proceeding on an application.
So you can't like take judicial notice of something that we all heard?
No, it's not an official act. You could take judicial notice of it if it was an official act, like an ordinance or a resolution, but just of a presentation, it's not available for judicial notice.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I guess in summation, I would say, you know, it isn't the job of this body to override the planning commission based solely on personal opinion or emotion. They really have to look at the code and what it requires, not just the conditional use, but the shoreline management. And I mean, I feel bad that the Seagulls have gone to all this trouble, and I really think, you know, they're obviously incredibly philanthropic people, wonderful people, but none of that is relevant in this case, and that sounds so cold to say that. But it's true, it's not relevant to the issues that are before us, what kind of people they are. The only thing that's relevant is whether or not the town has met their burden, and I don't believe they have.
Are you finished?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Well, you seem surprised.
Pleasantly. Would you like to go next? Well, all right. I'll go first. Okay. After our last meeting with the Seagulls, I had a lovely phone call with Mrs. Siegel, and I really thought that we had a solution that we were gonna work with Oregon Coast Alliance and get some of their recommendations and move forward. And I was shocked when I saw it on the planning commission agenda again, because I thought finally we figured out something to work cooperatively with agencies. And so, again, I was really disappointed, and I enjoyed our discussion and how we talked about working together as a community and working cooperatively. And sorry to say that it didn't pan out.
That's all you have to say right now?
That's all I have to say right now. So it's somebody's turn.
Ugh. You know, I feel for the Seagulls. I feel for the planning commission, and I feel for the council who has to deal with this code. But I agree with Lisa that we have to look at the code. But we are also dealing with code that really, in some cases, there are impossible standards to meet. The burden of proof, you know, what is the burden of proof that something will not work? What's the burden of proof that there will be no cost to the public? The burden of proof that there is a critical need in this. I mean, these are all areas of the code that would be nice to have some kind of definition that would lead us to those conclusions, and there's not. So I don't like the characterization that the Seagulls came in this thinking, oh, let's go get riprap, so let's only get experts that suggest riprap. I think they looked at experts and tried to figure out their shoreline stabilization, and the experts recommended something. And I'm concerned about discounting expert testimony. We require expert testimony, and then we discount it. And we'll, coming back to the planning commission, they're in a tough spot too. They, before they voted to deny the application, I believe it was a 3-4 vote to approve the riprap with planned maintenance. So it was 3-4. So it's like all of us struggle with these definitions. You know, our code clearly offers a path to riprap. And you know, the Seagulls feel like they were meeting that with higher priority solutions that, again, did they work or did they not work? Those are the questions that are practically impossible to answer, except they're a matter they're subjective matter, they're just our opinions. You know, from what I've seen of the flooding and the pictures, I think that that's, you know, the real issue here is the erosion. And can it go farther before there is a critical need becomes the question for me. And, I think that if there is, significant erosion from where it's at now, there is critical need. And I'm not sure that I want to put them in that position. So I think we have to look at, overturning the denial.
Yeah. So I have a lot of things that I could say, but I think that I am just going to, let you all know that I am absolutely in agreement with Eric and with Gary, on this matter. It hasn't been an easy decision to make. I know a lot of work has gone into this, but, where our code needs to be a little more functional. So that's where I am on this matter. I think that we should approve their application.
Yeah, okay. I just want to address two things. Again, on the expert testimony, because it's very intimidating to have an engineering firm and all these, ex-soil experts come in. It doesn't mean an applicant is not going to present expert testimony that does not support their position. Period. That's how it works. You always present your experts that are going to support what your position is. And I don't think that I just don't see how that could be repeated. And also, Mr. Rasmussen talked about, well, this is just 50 feet worth of riprap. But no, it's not. You have to look at the cumulative effects of riprap up and down the beach. And the cumulative effects of riprap up and down the beach is a degradation of the health of the beach, which belongs to all of us, thanks to our beach bill. So I feel like, I agree that our code needs to be revamped to make it much more clear on exactly how you reach the criteria. But that being said, I don't feel that in this case, the appellant has met their burden of showing that they have a critical need, and I wish I could. Well, because this was addressed in that hearing that we had, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, but I guess I can't. But it was addressed directly and substantively. So if anyone wants to think back on what they heard.
I think it's safe to assume that none of us are fans of riprap here, that we all understand the problem with it. They are in a low-lying, high energy wave area, and DLCD handbook itself says that clay burritos are not suitable for that area. So if we're not going to allow this in this situation, where is the faster river? I don't know.
I think you have to try the solutions first, and if they don't work, and I don't think that plantings did not work in the site when they were put in 2007 and didn't fail, where there was no request for additional armoring until 2021. So that's 15 years. And, like I said, the science is better now. We have new standards and we have new methods, and it's constantly evolving, and it's evolved since 2007.
And do you think the DLCD handbook is out of date on the clay burritos not being suitable for that area?
I don't think they say that. I don't think it says that, it's not suitable for that area. It's not looking at
High wave.
the high
Energy
wave.
area.
The high wave issue is something that is going to happen. No matter what's in there, unless you put in a huge wall, you're going to have overtopping.
I'm not talking about overtop, I'm just
Overtopping is
talking
what
about
the problem
erosion.
is. The overtopping is what the problem is here. That's
Well,
what's causing,
erosion-
and going up
erosion
that,
is the problem.
and go, I think it's caused more by overtopping and going up that narrow channel and then spreading out laterally is what has caused most of the degradation on that property. And there still is plenty of space there. And, I mean, it's just, where do you stop?
Deanna, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think that, we could probably go on about this for hours. And I think it's our decision at this point. We need to decide if we need to, or if the Seagulls, we feel the Seagulls haven't met their burden of proof and that we need to overturn the, planning commission's decision.
So are you prepared to make a motion?
Kind of.
Can I say something? I had written a couple of things that would make me more comfortable with overturning the planning commission's decision, and I based those conditions on the conditions that were in the initial motion that was made at the planning commission meeting, the motion to approve it. I believe it was Jay Orloff proposed a few conditions, and I reworded some of those conditions to something that would make me feel a little bit more comfortable. And I don't know if it would be appropriate to discuss those conditions before making a motion, or if
Well, I would say, if it's okay with everyone, I would say go ahead.
Yeah, they were struggling, he was struggling during the meeting to
Yeah.
try to take those, so you thought about it.
Make the motion, then we
Just make the motion, Aaron.
I tried. All right. I'll give this a shot. I motion to approve the appeal and overturn the planning commission decision with the two conditions. First condition, that the applicant provide a written and enforceable vegetation maintenance plan prepared by a landscape professional that includes native willows and minimizes the use of non-native species. This plan shall be enforced for a period of 10 years, and a report submitted to the city annually to the planning department. And if the applicant fails to follow through on the maintenance and or reporting of the vegetation maintenance, that they shall be fined and the maintenance be undertaken by the city or at the city's direction at the cost of the applicant. And then the second condition, the revetment shall not include the French drain that is included within their the plans, so as to not drain water as a point source onto the public beach. And go ahead.
No, I just asked if there was a second. Are you finished?
That's the motion. The only hiccup that's within that motion is I mentioned a fine, and I don't know if that would need to be defined. A fine if they if they violate the conditions, in addition to having to pay for somebody else to do it for them. I didn't know what an appropriate dollar figure fine is, or if there's something within our code that would more clearly define something like that.
So why don't we ask for a second, and then we will get some opinions on that.
I will second it, and those were my concerns as well.
So who would like to discuss the fine amount? I mean, that caught me too, like, I mean, would it be, is it possible to amend the motion to say possible fines? And I don't know who I'm asking this question.
So my rationale for including that verbiage within there is to stop the applicant or discourage the applicant from just not doing it and then paying for someone else to come and do whatever maintenance. So it's an additional fine that they would have to pay in addition to the cost of having to pay for it to get done anyways.
I don't know how that would be enforced or how you would do that at all. I mean, if there is not, it's not a fine in our code for not, you know, keeping your riprap in good health. I mean, I just, and I don't think a fine would make any difference, to tell you the truth, at all. So I guess, so what would happen then is if the Seagulls chose not to, or could, you know, or for some reason could not keep up that maintenance plan, it would fall to the city. They'd have to pay for it, but again, I don't think that would make it, it'd be a great deal for them. They get the city to do all the work, they just have to pay for it.
So, I think that much with the food tax, if you don't file a report, there's a $500 fine is what you get for that. It's a $500.
I'm not necessarily, I mean, you're supposed to, but you don't necessarily get. It depends on the judge, the whole other issue. Yeah, stick to the topic.
So anyway, that's all I was gonna say about that. I mean, I think that, you know, and if they don't file a report, if they don't file a report, that doesn't mean that they're still gonna have to pay for what the city, if this were to come to pass, they would still have to pay for whatever maintenance the city has to do.
But was that $500 fine set by council in a decision? Or was it, is it written into?
I think it's
written into.
Yeah, I think it's in the,
Oh, yeah,
This is something else you can help with.
I'm not sure.
Are you, yes, I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you, counselors. I think you're asking about the efficacy of a fine, and the development code does provide for fines for violation of the development code, which I believe would include conditions of approval. And the fine is between $100 and $500 each day. Typically, enforcement proceedings also require notice of the violation and the opportunity to cure it or take corrective action. What I would maybe suggest is that we'll need to reconvene and let planning staff and council work on findings in support of a decision to approve. And we can take a look at the availability of a fine mechanism that is consistent with the code, as well as, you know, kind of achieves what the council wants.
Then did that motion that now has a second, that's workable as long as it goes to city staff to iron out the details.
I think you could say the motion, a fine if available and determined to be legal. I think because the exact language of the conditions we would want to work on and present to the council in the final findings.
So Eric, would you like to amend your motion?
I know I need to amend it to tentatively approve the appeal. I was unclear of what else specifically would need to get amended for
I think we're
this.
just asking staff to adopt a final decision that includes the fine language.
Want us to bring the findings on?
Yes.
Yes,
No.
so the staff would bring findings on language.
Yes.
So because there isn't a staff report or a decision that includes findings in support of a decision approving the application, staff and I will need to go back and prepare those findings for council consideration. And because it was a denial, there's no potential conditions of approval that anyone has ever looked at. And so that's why we're asking for a week or 10 days or something like that to draft those findings in support of the decision to approve with conditions of approval.
And how are
in
we,
particular, figuring out the availability of a fine mechanism.
and where are we in the 120 days?
That is up on November 26th. So I believe the motions that are draft motions that are included sort of say this is November 26th is the 120 days, and I believe the city recorder was going to poll the council on availability to reconvene to adopt the findings. But I just want to note that there hasn't actually been an official vote yet. So.
No, we haven't officially voted.
Okay.
We just need to make sure that our motion is right.
Right.
So do I need to reread through what I believe to understand the motion to reflect all that information is that?
If you could, please.
All right, I'll give it a shot again. I move to tentatively approve the appeal and overturn the planning commission's decision with the conditions that, as stated before, the applicant provide written and enforceable vegetation management plan prepared by a landscape professional that includes native willows and minimizes the use of non-native species. This plan shall be enforced for a period of 10 years and a report submitted to the city on an annual basis to the city planning department. And if the applicant fails to follow through with maintenance and or reporting that the vegetation be maintained, maintenance or reporting that the vegetation is being maintained at least annually, the property owner shall be fined if that is found to be doable and legal through the city ordinances, and the maintenance to be performed by the city or at the city's direction at the cost of the applicant. The second condition is the revetment shall not include the French drain that drains onto the public beach, providing that point source of discharge onto the public beach.
Is there a second to the amended motion?
Yeah, my second is stand.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Counselor Ostrander,
Yes.
Counselor Hammond,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Council President Kerr,
No,
Mayor Knopf.
No. Okay, thanks everyone.
So we need to talk about when we're gonna come back to the box.
Always the hard part.
Yeah. We can do a poll, but I'd like to have kind of an open discussion first to kind of narrow down some things, because I believe Eric is out the week of the 17th. Which is when we would need to meet.
So don't we have, has everybody turned in their submittal for the executive session?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm still waiting on somebody.
Sorry.
Who's
Can't blame it on baseball.
So Eric is not available that week. The appeal of the 120 days is the 26th. Misty is out starting the 24th.
Eric, are you available by Zoom for a meeting that week?
I don't think I'll be available by Zoom that week. I'm available the week before, so next week I'm available the whole week. But I won't be available by Zoom. I don't think I'll be available by Zoom 17th to the 21st. But starting the 24th, I will be. Oh, in person too.
But we need to give the city staff and the attorney time to do the findings. So next week is probably not gonna work.
I'm completely going next week.
City council meeting on
Yeah, it's just
Thursday.
people, and
There's two of them.
don't we have an executive session?
Yeah,
Wednesday. So we're here the 12th and the 13th.
yeah. And then the last week in November is Thanksgiving week. I'm gonna be in kind of bed. But I could probably sneak away for. I mean, we aren't gonna need a ton of time, can we?
I didn't think so. But then our attorneys can,
Oh, shoot.
yeah.
It can't be the agenda on the 13th.
Could it be part of the agenda on the 15th?
That Missy had mentioned 7 to 10 days to get it turned around, so that would be a Missy and Robert discussion.
It's 9 days.
The 13th.
Yeah. Are you sure?
Mr. Can you turn this around in, 1 days?
Yes, is it an evening meeting on the 13th, a nighttime meeting?
Yes.
Yes, 6 o'clock. It
Okay.
starts. It might be early morning.
I can't see Robert, so I don't know if he's, you know,
Robert, what do you think?
on board.
Maybe. Do what I can.
Yeah.
I think something to bring out though, if we do have it on the 13th, we may not have it out until the 12th, so.
Mm-hmm.
So-
Right.
Well, I think
Right, so Jen, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing, but I think you said if the council considered the adoption of the final decision and findings on the 13th, that you would like to have those really finalized on the 12th for distribution.
Yeah, the council would need to read it at least the day before, or that night before.
Yeah.
which will be the meeting. We're gonna be in executive session then.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So
So you should read it in the morning. So
oh, that's true, we got the whole day.
you got the whole day for the 6
Okay, should we try to see if that will work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. We done that part? Okay, so next. Ready? Move on. Monthly status report, anybody got any questions? I had one question for the police chief, but I don't see that he's here. There's a speeding ticket going 104 in a 50-mile-an-hour zone. It must be right here. But we don't have to pick up it. It is right. Yeah, they get to the roundabout on 101. That's 95. That's 45. Okay. But anyway, I'll check it. Officer, chief.
That's where it is,
Okay. Anything, I know. Anything else on the monthly status report? Okay. Mayor communications, I am going to a League of Oregon Cities, Small Cities meeting on Friday in Rockaway. And I'm also gonna be present at the groundbreaking for the Pacifica building over by the former high school in Seaside. So I'm excited about that. It's being spearheaded by a former student. Anybody else have any? We have coffee with the counselors in a couple hours. Tomorrow. In a couple hours.
Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, coming up soon.
Yeah.
And,
Rehash all of this today.
yeah, right, please. Is this for the order?
Yeah. Oh, no, we're at counselor. Okay, anything else for counselor communications? Okay, now we're ready for the order.
So I just wanted to ask Bruce, is there anything happening? Or that you can talk about, and I don't know if you can, about our judicial system here in the city?
They might, but I don't know if we can have that conversation in a exec session and, we would like to be better if we could.
Yeah, I would like to have that. Is it possible to add it to an executive session?
We can try.
Yeah, once we get a date for an executive session,
Okay.
we can, just as long as you guys realize it would be a longer meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not that much longer.
Okay,
So, and the other thing is, I guess this is communications, I should have said it during that. I just wanna say, because this is good news, that I had some conversations with people who are working for HRAC, Leads on the Beach, and they say it's going wonderfully. They're happy, they feel like they're part of a team, and they are, it's running so smoothly, and all the ships are being covered, and people are really, on board, people who are working, so I am so happy to hear that, it was some good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's doing great.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would like to thank the public works staff, for their green light for honoring veterans. They put it on several, public buildings, and our public works trucks have green lights, and I really appreciate all their effort. And Karen said that Trevor was in charge of it, so he took charge, and we're really honoring our veterans. So be on the lookout for green lights. No, I haven't stopped lights in the beach, but we got green lights. We're not getting that.
I have I have two things for good of the order. One was about trash cans in town. So I noticed that they've disappeared from around the settling ponds on the south side of the settling ponds, right before you go into the Spruce Reserve. There used to be one or two cans. For some reason I feel like it was two, but there's no cans there now. And then the other is up at the Forest Reserve. There's a spot for dog bags, but there's nowhere for people to put those full dog bags, so they're stacking them next to the gate up there. And I was just wondering why we don't have garbage cans there.
So
Trash can on, that was south of the, treatment is now on the west side of the treatment. So
Oh, is that where it
around-
went? Okay.
And I don't know if that's easier for maintenance and pickup, but I just noticed that the other day that it's moved around the corner.
You go down the sidewalk, that trash can is not.
Yes,
Okay.
it's not on the sidewalk, it's more in the corner, on the west side of that fence.
Okay, I read my bike the other direction around, so I never saw that. I guess I just saw that it's not there, and I'm like, why? What the heck happened? But the one that was brought up to me by somebody else was the one at the Forest Reserve, that there's no can at the trailhead, there at the parking lot, and I feel like that's if we're want people to use that, we're providing them dog bags, like there should be somewhere to put that stuff instead of just tossing it off on the side of the trail.
Actually, you can track it out. You know, a very short distance, you can carry it out, you don't have to pile it on the side of the road.
Well, it should be our job to make things easy for people, like not make things whenever possible. But anyways, the other thing I had was a letter that we received just before the meeting today. It reminded me that Lisa had asked about a presentation from the attorneys about the unassociated groups, and I was wondering where we were at on that. If we,
It's on the 13th.
oh,
November 13th.
cool. All right.
And, Jackie and her.
Good, okay.
Cool. That's all I got.
I don't believe there was a trash can in the reserve, because when I go
No.
walking it,
There hasn't ever been.
oh, you're saying you would like one there.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, I just wanted to clarify. Okay, anything else?
Amber Fowler brought up a pretty good point about validating the people. Make public comments and letting them know that we do hear them, and I feel badly that we don't always, we try, I think sometimes our meetings get a little long, and, so I just wanna thank everybody for calling in, making their public comment tonight, and all of the work that goes into all the presentations and everything.
Talked in the past about that same problem, about not being, us having to be unresponsive when people get up and speak, that we're not allowed to respond to them or ask them questions or agree with them. And I don't, it seems that that's just the way it is.
Well, it
And we
is,
can't
but-
do anything about it.
The end of the meeting is when you can acknowledge, that's when.
And we
can
do,
acknowledge.
oftentimes. we do.
Oftentimes,
We try.
But our meetings have been a little,
Yeah,
we're done at a time, so unfortunately.
but I think, because I've had several conversations with citizens since our last meeting on the elementary school, and I think people need to realize that there's a difference between listening and hearing and agreeing. And I think that, you know, we do listen, we hear what they're saying, but we don't always agree with what they say. And, you know, I've had a couple of them say, well, why don't we just have a dialogue? I said, we would really never get out, we would never start the agenda. That it would all be back and forth. And we need to remember that, these are business meetings also. That we need to try to get things done, so that we gotta find a happy medium. For all that.
I don't think we can. I think we can always do a better job at validating people's concerns.
There's no limit to better,
But
my favorite thing.
yes,
That's what.
but in that,
That's probably what the county, we can respond, we can talk and.
Right.
Yeah.
but in that meeting also, I mean, there were lots of comments about recreation center. And it feels like we acknowledge those that is a need that just may not be appropriate for that space or that money. But it felt like we were validating those concerns, but there may have been, she may have other concerns that she felt more validated, but I do always feel like I can do better at validating people's concerns. So, what was your line?
There's no limit to better.
Yes.
Remember that, everyone. Okay, with that